My fellow Americans, let me begin by congratulating the team at NASA and our brave astronauts on the successful launch of Artemis II. It was quite something. It will be traveling further than any manned rocket has ever flown and will very substantially pass the moon, go around it, and come back home from a distance that has never been done before. It's amazing.
Roger, roll pitch. Integrity, AMT high.
Due to that suit being pressurized and expanded.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Two minutes past 6 in the morning. Like a stubborn case of chlamydia, I'm back. Mark Dolan with you on Talk Breakfast. Fantastic to be back in the hot seat. So much to get through this morning. Breaking as we come on air. U-turn number 20. Starmer stops the Chagos surrender. The islands will stay British. We will bring full reaction. Do not adjust your set. That's right, folks. Starmer has dumped his plan to dispose of the Chagos Islands. They will remain sovereign British territory as a result of pressure from Donald J. Trump. The Chagos Islands are staying British. And as we're saving a reported cost of £35 billion to give them away, what should we spend the money on? Answers on a postcard. Meanwhile, US Vice President J.D. Vance flies in for talks with Iran, telling them don't play games with America. So will a deal be tied up before the week is out? And is the world a safer place since America went into Iran? What do you think? How will history judge Donald Trump's intervention in the Middle East? And the breaking news just keeps coming. How the mighty have fallen. Prince Harry is sued for libel in the High Court by the charity that he co-founded in memory of his mother Diana. Now, if Harry loses, he will be on the hook for millions. We'll bring you the latest on the prodigal prince's extraordinary fall from grace. So it's a massive morning of news here on Talk Breakfast. And we've got a question for you this morning because it's my understanding that there is no figure within the Labour Party that everyone can unite around to replace Keir Starmer. So it appears that we're stuck with Sir Keir Starmer as PM. So my question to you this morning, can Britain survive another 3 years of this Labour government? What will the country look like in 3 years' time? Can Britain survive another 3 years of Sir Keir Starmer in number 10? My phone number is 03444991000. Tommy is taking your calls. You can listen to the show on DAB Plus in-app and online. You can also watch us. Just head to YouTube and search Talk. Davis is directing our TV output today. So, Davis, give the camera a little wiggle, if you may. There he goes. And listen, we are not boring here in the morning. I'm going to use the FT because I never read it, right? It's very exciting, the TV product, because we don't take any prisoners. Can Britain survive another 3 years of Sir Keir Starmer in number 10? Give us a call. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note. Now, the executive producer of the show, Dean Spencer, is away this week having plastic surgery. I won't go into details. It's a bum lift. He's infatuated with Kim Kardashian. So I'm delighted to say that, if anything, we've upgraded, OK? We've gone from, I don't know, Harry Kane to Cristiano Ronaldo, no less. Phil Dave is at the helm, which means the quality is just going to shoot right up. I think I already sound better. Do I sound better? I think I sound better. Phil Dave's here. I sound better. Don't I? Phil Dave very helpfully reminded me to plug my microphone in this morning. And we've got another development because our lead engineer is George this morning. Fresh meat, right? Energy, talent, enthusiasm. We had to get rid of... I got rid of Dave. In the end, I've pulled the plug on Dave, the engineer. He had to go. And do you want to know why? It's the bottle, I'm afraid. And the thing, he says I'm sober, OK? It's still in his system from the night before is what he doesn't understand. It's still in his system. So I've got the dream team, but I can't do it without you. 0344 499 1000. As the saying goes, let's talk. Well, I've missed being on air massively. It's great to be chatting with you again. And I'm afraid to say it's the beginning of a bit of a Dolan marathon. Many thanks to my brilliant bosses here at Talk for the opportunity. I'm going to be on the radio every day for the next couple of weeks. It's a great privilege, of course, the home of common sense. And it's all weekend, 6 till 10. And I'm looking after the brilliant Ian Collins' slot from Monday through Thursday, 1 till 4. So I couldn't be happier to be on air because there's so much to talk about. Let's start today with the front pages. The Times newspaper. PM is forced by Trump to abandon Chagos plan. Sir Keir Starmer has been forced to drop legislation that would cede sovereignty of the Chagos Islands to Mauritius in a further deterioration of relations with Donald Trump. The Times has been told that a bill underpinning the deal will not be included in the King's speech next month after the US president branded it an act of great stupidity and withdrew his support. Now, hilariously, we're being told that Number 10 are going to try to convince Donald Trump that it's a good idea to give away the Chagos Islands, to give it to Mauritius, who have no historic claim on those islands. They never owned them. It's miles away from Mauritius, OK? There's no geographical imperative. There's no historic imperative. And Mauritius is a close economic partner of China, no less, who I think you will find are our geopolitical enemy. So good luck convincing Donald Trump that we should give up the Chagos Islands, which, of course, came into play during America's actions in the Middle East when Iran tried to lob a missile in the direction of Diego Garcia, which is one of the Chagos Islands, which is sovereign British territory. Also, good luck convincing Donald Trump, who's an entrepreneur and understands the bottom line, that somehow it's a good idea to give away sovereign territory, which is militarily and economically significant, and pay for the privilege. We were going to pay £35 billion over 100 years, which I know you spread it out. It's still a lot of money for the privilege of giving away our own land. Make it make sense. So good luck convincing Donald Trump that's a good idea. It ain't going to happen. The Chagos Islands stay British. It is Keir Starmer's 20th U-turn by our estimation. And my question to you, we had a meeting before the show. Phil and I got in at 2 a.m. because we just wanted to be that little bit better today. And we had strong coffees and we're like, what is the topic? And we both agreed that it's rather depressing to realise that actually we're probably stuck with Starmer now, that there is no figure that the party can get behind, because Angela Rayner still has this mystery around her stamp duty and the HMRC investigation, which could go on for months. So the Ginger Growler, Big Ange herself, remains a controversial figure. Then there's Ed Miliband, who is looking increasingly isolated with his commitment to net zero. We're in the middle of an energy crisis and we're not drilling for oil and gas on our own shores. Make it make sense. So he's looking rather exposed. Who else is there? Well, there's Shabana Mahmood, who I quite like. Phil Dave. You see, we're not an echo chamber here. This is not a bubble. We don't indulge in narratives. She might be Labour, who are horribly wrong about most things, but she herself, she's a decent politician, and her proposed changes to indefinite leave to remain are very good. She's suggesting that you have to wait double the length of time before being allowed to stay in the country, from 5 years to 10 years. You can't have a criminal record. You must have a viable income, and you must speak the language to a very high standard. And here's the other great thing. If you're a wealth creator and if you've got a few quid in the bank, you jump the queue. Bring it on. Great policies. And that's why she'll never be leader of the Labour Party. She's far too right-wing for those backbenchers and for the grassroots. So therefore, there isn't a figure that the party can unite around, because I'll be honest with you, in my humble opinion, both the cabinet and the backbenchers, there's no talent there. They're all career politicians. They're such losers, in my opinion. Name me a winner that's currently either on those backbenches or in the cabinet. Honestly, my mind is open. We don't do echo chambers, do we, Phil Dave? We're fair. There are no narratives here. If you can find me someone that's good, then happy days. I'm just racking my brains. I cannot think of a wealth creator, of a great leader, someone that's an entrepreneur with business links, or has achieved anything significant outside of climbing their way up the greasy pole of local politics, you know, party advisor, councillor, prospective parliamentary candidate. You know the drill. Think tank. That's not the real world. That's not the world that you and I inhabit. Think tanks, parliamentary advisor. Do me a favour. There are no real people in the Labour Party. It's a woke metropolitan bubble of party apparatchiks. Not an easy word to say at this time of the day. 12 minutes past 6. So there you go, folks. The Chagos Islands stay British. But, so we had our meeting this morning, Big Phil, Dave and I can't lie, because Dean's not here this week. I think I'm already sounding better. I think I'm sounding better. And Phil Dave is producing. I don't think it's an accident. But anyway, what I want to ask you is this. Can we survive 3 more years of Starmer? Because at our meeting, we concluded that actually he's likely to remain in post even after the bloodbath of May. And the reason why is because May is priced in now. Right? It's been accepted that they're going to lose, and they're going to lose big. But there isn't anyone that they all like that they can unite around. Why? Because the Labour Party is not one entity. It's made up of a couple of Blairites on the so-called right of the party. There's Blue Labour. There's the soft left, which is actually hard left. Then there's the people that are the Corbynites, who quite fancy Captain Cleavage, old Zach Polanski. You know, they're almost Greens. That's how left-wing they are. So it's a messy coalition. It's very ironic, actually, that the right is a lot less divided than the left. So I would argue that the Labour Party is more ideologically split and bifurcated than Reform and the Tories. I honestly think that, Phil Dave. I think that you could glue the Tories and Reform together, and that is more or less a coherent block of right-wing people. I really do. I think that Reform and the Tory, if you glued them together, is pretty much the Tory party of the 80s. Yes, there would be some on the left. You'd have your kind of closet Lib Dems who currently populate the Tory party. But there are quite moderate figures at Reform as well, and then more on the right. But I think if you glued Reform and the Tories together, it's a broad church of the right, but it's relatively coherent. It's more coherent than the messy coalition that is the Labour Party. That's a hot mess, the makeup of the Labour Party. And that's why they can't unite around one person. Wes Streeting, forget about it. Angela Rayner, forget about it. Ed Miliband, forget about it. So are we stuck with Starmer? Can Britain survive 3 more years of this Labour government? What is the country going to be like in 3 years? Let me know. Also, Europe faces jet fuel shortage within weeks, threatening our holidays. That is a big concern. And royal row, a dispute between the Duke of Sussex and Sophie Chandauka, head of his Centre Bali charity, has led to a libel suit that's said to have started when she was asked to make room for Meghan in the lineup after a polo match. How the mighty have fallen. Prince Harry, once the most popular member of the royal family, ahead even of Queen Elizabeth II, now being sued in the High Court for libel and by the charity that he co-founded in the memory of his mother. You couldn't make it up. What a pathetic, I'm afraid, figure he cuts these days. He's made some horrible life choices. By the way, there's something going on in space, George. I don't know what you think. I'm not fussed about space. I'm actually quite focused on planet Earth. And I'm not even just focused on planet Earth. Phil Dave raised a good point today. And by the way, I honestly think I think I'm sounding better. I sound better. And Phil Dave raised a very good point. And he said, why are we worried about other countries? Why are we talking about Iran so much? And all the, even Chagos or whatever. Why don't we talk about the United Kingdom? Why don't we talk about Britain? Why don't we talk about Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales and England? Why don't we talk about our country? Because to be fair to old Donald, he talks about America a lot, America first. Is it time for Britain first? So not only are the elite focused on matters overseas, which is far less important than what's happening here, such as open borders, inflation, the highest youth unemployment in Europe, zero growth, debt, crime. It's not great, is it? Poorly integrated societies. That's what we should be talking about. Unfortunately, the press are very excited about the Artemis 2 mission, which has successfully concluded with its crew returning to Earth after a roughly 10-day journey around the moon. The Orion spacecraft re-entered Earth's atmosphere at speeds of 25,000 miles an hour, enduring temperatures near 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, that's nothing. I was in Tenerife last August, and it was hotter than that. And I had to have quite a few cerveza just to hydrate. After a brief communications blackout during re-entry, Mrs. Family Show. Phil, can you please behave yourself? After a brief communications blackout during re-entry, parachutes deployed and the capsule achieved a precise bullseye splashdown in the Pacific Ocean near California, where recovery teams retrieved the astronauts safely, marking the first time that humans have travelled to the moon and back since the Apollo program. So well done them. They've gone off to space. Do you care about space? Does it matter? Can you convince me why it's important? Because I honestly don't care. I'm not going to be obnoxious about this. I will say it's a great human achievement, and I will say that those astronauts are very brave. So well done. You know, I'm not being churlish here. It's a great thing. I just don't care. Do you care about space? Can you convince me it matters? 0344 499 1000. What I do care about is this Labour government. Can we survive? Can we survive 3 more years of it? I've got more front pages. We'll do that next in the company of one of the finest broadcasters and comedians in this country. It's 18 minutes past 6, and I honestly think I'm sounding better.
Brand new for 2026. It's going to be the only way to start your day. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation can come to speak about the day's news. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. You know who you are. You get up, you graft, you work hard. I'm here for you. We want to hear your side promise you one thing, it is where the nation can and will come to talk. The Jeremy Carr Breakfast Show, weekdays from 6 a.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. The time is 6:21. Lovely to have your company. So much to get through today. And let's have a look at the front pages. The Sun newspaper, new low in shoplifting epidemic. Costa del crime. High street coffee chain hires bouncers to guard grub. You won't believe this story, folks. Costa coffee bosses have hired bouncers to protect their food and drink as the shoplifting epidemic hits a new low. Security guards have been deployed in stores where items are stolen by brazen thieves multiple times a day, including in London and Manchester. One Costa customer said yesterday they've clearly hit the tipping point. The Mirror, royal bombshell, Harry sued. Prince faces defamation battle with his former African charity. Daily Star, superfans 5K on DJ Shrine. She says, I still love him, Scotland. Scott Mills superfan Yolanda May has spent £5,000 on a shrine to her favourite DJ. And the lead story of the day, front page of the Times. PM is forced by Trump to abandon Chagos plan. Sir Keir Starmer has been forced to drop legislation that would cede sovereignty of the Chagos Islands to Mauritius in a further deterioration of relations with Trump. Let's get reaction to that and all the big stories of the day in the company of a very good friend of mine, the brilliant broadcaster and comedian Paul Cox. Hi, Paul.
Good morning, Mark. So good to see you. I'm sorry I can't be with you this morning, but this is second best. I'd love to have met Phil Dave as well. Absolute legend, a man who goes to the pub for a living, and I never got to meet him this morning.
Well, I know he's very clever to have come up with that rather boozy format. I understand you've had car trouble.
I have had car trouble. My battery has finally given in, and it decided that 3:15 this morning was the best time for that to happen. Luckily, it gave in before I left rather than on the way, I guess. But nonetheless, thank goodness for technology, Mark.
Yeah, the problem you've got, all the electronics on a Bentley drain the battery quite quickly, don't they?
That is the problem I hear, but on a Ford Galaxy, it's also the same.
I thought you were cruising around in a silver shadow off the back of all those corporate gigs. I will say one thing briefly before we get to the papers. I have a golden rule with car batteries. I just change them every 3 years because you never know when they're going to go, do you? And the problem you've got with the garage say, oh, the battery's all right for another year. It was like, I can't live with that doubt.
That is, I mean, I wish I'd just listened to that advice just maybe even hours ago. But there you go, Mark.
Put it in the diary.
You're in the big seat.
Listen, Jeremy Clarkson, eat your heart out. Daily Mail, we're sitting on a gold mine. North Sea oil hits record high. So why won't Red Ed drop his net zero madness and back new drilling to give Britain a boost? And Harry's African charity sues him for libel. So many stories to go at, Paul. But of course, the big one of the day is that the Chagos giveaway has been stopped as a result of pressure from Donald Trump. We will not cede sovereign territory to Mauritius. Your reaction?
Hallelujah is my reaction. I always hoped it was inevitable that we would get to this point, given the rhetoric around it. It's been a bit of a soap opera, really, hasn't it? It's kind of gone up and down. And at one point, Donald Trump was saying, well, it seems like it's the best deal that they can get, etc. Throughout, I think the Labour Party in particular, Keir Starmer, have shown a complete ineptitude with regards to the management of this. I think there deserves to be a national inquiry into the Chagos deal.
Yeah.
I'm glad that it's stopped. I'm glad it stays sovereign to Great Britain. I think that's going to be a huge bonus for us and the defence of our great country into the future, particularly in these difficult times. But let's not forget, whilst we celebrate this, that this was a terrible deal. £35 billion of taxpayer money being given away whilst we give the territory away, and we got nothing in return. And the only people that benefited from it was, weirdly, Mauritius, but then our archenemy, China, Mark.
Well, you're so right about that. They are allies of China. They've got no historic claim on the islands. They haven't owned them before. Mauritius isn't even close by to Chagos. No. It made no sense. And we have the bad orange man to thank for this. It was Donald Trump who has effectively vetoed this deal. How ironic that there is a US president who's more mindful of the British national interest than our own Prime Minister.
Yeah, it just took this war in Iran to wake Keir Starmer up. And I'm not sure that he was ever woken up, actually. I think I'm giving him credit. I still think he's probably incredibly confused about what's going on. He probably doesn't understand why this was such a big deal. But like I say, a national inquiry maybe is a bit of a stretch too far, given everything else we've got going on. But I think there's definitely some questions to be asked in the House, Mark. This is, well, you know, treachery, treasonous.
Well,
why would we give this away?
This might be slightly out of left field, Paul, but do you remember a few years ago when about 5 clubs in the Premier League tried to create a breakaway Super League without asking anyone? It just feels like that's how the elites behave these days. You know, you've got the salami slicing of Brexit. We're all going to all but go back in, I think, over the next 3 years. You've got this crazy Chagos giveaway, the jury trials. You know, these things that are out with the will of the British people.
Yeah, it's clearer and clearer that they believe that we're plebs. The Labour Party in particular is so far removed from the working man and woman of this country. It's unfathomable, really. I know this kind of seems like an obvious thing to say at this point.
I love you, my brother. I love you like a brother.
Yeah.
Unfathomable.
I'll try my best to be a serious broadcaster.
Your delivery of that word was unfathomable. You see, the problem, you're like Engineer Dave. I know you think you're sober, but it's still in your system from last night, Paul.
I haven't had a drink since 2024 , so it really was a big drink. But
so unfathomable is the right word, even if it's hard to say.
Yes, it was incredibly difficult to say at, 6:27 on a Saturday morning. Look, it's, like I say, it's a scandal. The Chagos deal is a scandal.
Yeah.
I'm aware, obviously, that the Conservative Party started looking at this deal some time ago under James Cleverly, I believe. But
Correct.
They never followed through. They never followed through. And Keir Starmer attempted to. And it seemed the only people that benefited were either our enemies or people closely working with Keir Starmer. Something really doesn't smell right here.
Is there a defence to be made of the government's position on Chagos that actually this has been a legal wrangle for many years? It has to be resolved at some point. It will come to a head. And what we need is access to those islands for 100 years, which is what the deal guaranteed. That's the government position, is that we need those islands, and that's what the deal is actually about.
Yeah, look, that's a good point, and I think it's worthy of an argument, particularly for balance when it comes to this story, because it wasn't all completely bonkers. However, we seem to be focusing far too much on what's referred to as international law. Our enemies, Iran, China, Russia, they care not for international law. They use international law to gain advantage over us. What we have to do is stand firm and show strength and say the Chagos Islands are ours. There may be some technical issues with it, but the remaining ours. We'll have the discussion, but we're not letting it go. We just never show that strength anymore. I mean, it's a theme throughout nearly every major story that infects the UK at the moment.
Most definitely, I completely agree with you. Do you have strong views about what's happened with the space mission, the Artemis 2, which has successfully concluded with its crew returning to Earth after 10 days around the moon? Is it important? Can you explain to me why space matters?
Well, I was chuckling away when you were talking about that, because all the rhetoric I've heard across media is that it's this wonderful thing, and I've been a little bemused by the whole thing. Look, I understand that it's a magnificent feat. I understand that perhaps this is good for the USA. It may even be good for humankind. I'm, like you, much more focused on planet Earth. I can understand why people are interested. I'm aware that a lot of our listeners and viewers here, I'm sure, are incredibly interested. I didn't really keep up with it. I mean, I saw a little bit of the takeoff, and then I didn't bother. I've been fascinated by some of the pictures. But like you said in your intro, there's so much going on planet Earth that I'm quite happy for them to go and do it. But I'm not going to get too involved, is my take.
Well, I think that's a really excellent answer. I agree with that. You know, acknowledge the human achievement, but what really matters are the big issues facing this country. Zero growth, the return of inflation, unemployment cranking up, particularly youth unemployment, businesses folding. The whole thing's heartbreaking. In fact, shortly I'll come to the news of a major restaurateur who's actually shared the details of his books just to demonstrate how egregiously damaging Rachel Reeves's budgets have been. Let's take a voice note from Andrew on the economy. George, take it away. We'll take Andrew if we can.
Morning, Mark. Andrew here. Just picking up on a point you mentioned a minute ago about things that the media are keen to not mention, such as the unemployment rate. Now, 2 years ago, Rachel Reeves said quite publicly that there was over 9 million people in the UK claiming some sort of unemployment benefit. Now, the official statistics are telling us that we're at 5.2%. Now, if we've got a working population of 41 million people, how on earth is the unemployment rate at 5.2%? It isn't. It's at 22%. It's another government lie, and they must think we're all stupid, Mark.
Thank you for that. And here's another voice note. Can Britain survive another 3 years of Starmer in number 10?
Morning, Mark. It's Phil from Durban in South Africa again. Well, let's look at the achievements so far from our glorious leader. He's wrecked the NHS. He's taxed us into oblivion. We have no military capability. The Treasury is completely empty, and the police don't work. So if we replaced our glorious leader with, let's look at the options. We've got a fraudster of the property market, or we've got the mad bacon sandwich eater. I say let's keep Starmer, because he can only get us into more trouble. Thanks for listening. Cheers, Mark. Have a great day.
Thank you for an excellent voice note. I'm delighted to say that the fantastic comedian and broadcaster Paul Cox stays with me for more front pages. But a simple question this morning. Can Britain survive another 3 years of Starmer in number 10? 6:33. This is Talk Breakfast.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. You're listening to Talk Breakfast, 6:35. A massive piece of breaking news if you're just joining us. Prime Minister forced by Trump to abandon Chagos plan. The Chagos surrender is dead in the water. It will remain British sovereign territory. We will save £35 billion. If that's not good news, I don't know what is. How about this from Bill? Good morning, Mark. Trump has started making Starmer pay for his dithering on the Gulf conflict. Chagos Islands, AI investment yesterday, but Starmer will look at Gibraltar and the Falkland Islands next. This from Simon in Durham. Good morning, Mark. Well. Starmer U-turns on Chagos. I'd say that in the little phone call to the Donald he had the other day, Donny needled him about the deal and the little worm turned. Just my suspicion anyway. By the way, big up the Orange Man. Thank you for that. Keep those messages coming. Ian in Cornwall. Mark, will be on the hook for the Mauritian people's tax-free year. Good point, Ian. They've already been able to cut their national debt as a result of our lunacy. Lots of front pages if you're just joining us. Daily Mail. We're sitting on a gold mine. North Sea oil hits record high. So why won't Red Ed drop his net zero madness and back new drilling to give Britain a boost? With me down the line, I'm delighted to welcome comedian and broadcaster Paul Cox. Paul, can Britain survive another 3 years of Starmer in number 10?
Well, I think this is a great country. We've spoken before about this being a sleeping lion that just needs waking up again. It's never going to wake under Keir Starmer. So I'm not going to talk down Great Britain. I'd say that, yes, we could. What I would say is it's massively detrimental to us if he should continue in power. And what a poor situation to find ourselves in, where Keir Starmer is the best of the party in charge. Keir Starmer. This man is like, it's like he can't, I bet he can't believe his luck. If you look at Keir Starmer's track record, the way he's found his way to the top is by obfuscating, never really telling the truth, never really having an opinion, having these kind of schoolboy, student-esque politics, only slightly better than someone like Jeremy Corbyn or Zach Polanski, but miring himself in all sorts of trouble because he doesn't have any real thoughts of his own. This man couldn't run a bath, and he certainly cannot run our country. 3 more years would be massively detrimental.
Well, I agree with you there. Daily Mail front page. We're sitting on a gold mine. North Sea oil hits a record high. Why won't Red Ed drop his net zero madness and back new drilling to give Britain a boost? It would be the right thing for this government to do, but it seems they're very wedded to the ideology of net zero, Paul.
Yeah, don't we have a lot to thank Al Gore for? If only he'd won the presidency against George W. Bush, we'd probably be all absolutely fine by now. But look, what we are starting to see is cracks with regards to net zero. People are starting to doubt it because obviously by now Greta Toenail had said that we would be, you know, under 50 meters of water and the whole world would be burning to death. That hasn't happened. So she's gone on to talk about some other nonsense, and we're left paying for this ideological policy that's been created as a result of that scaremongering. And that's all it is. Nothing has changed. No one's saying that there isn't climate change, but everybody of any sense is saying, but it's not worth the cost. It's simply not worth the cost. It's not affecting us the way they said it would. And the great thing about, from their perspective, about this climate alarmism is they can just move the goalposts whenever they like. Oh, well, you don't fully understand it. And don't you see the scientists are all behind it? What we've learned here is experts and scientists and politicians can all be bought out. If it's in their favour and if it means they can stay in their job, they will sell us any old snake oil. And that's exactly what's happened.
And Paul, we can be fair and reasonable about this. We can be level-headed. We don't have to be tribal. I suspect, knowing you well, that we can both agree there's nothing wrong with renewables. I've got no problem with a solar panel on the house which powers the radiators in the winter. Happy days. I don't mind a windmill or two or wave technology. The point is that we need a mix. And the ideology of net zero is at odds with that. It's at odds with common sense and the reasonable middle ground.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're right. We need a smorgasbord of energy solutions.
We don't want pollution, right? We're not monsters. You're not a climate denier.
No, that's true, and I'm not. And we do need clean air, and it has to some degree got cleaner as a result of some policies. I'm not. By the way, that's not true that's not entirely true in London. Lies, damn lies, and statistics are very useful at times, and I'm not sure that ULEZ has actually paid off as much as Sadiq Khan would like us to believe it has.
Yeah.
But let's face it, if you've got £8 million in £8 million, that's your bank account. Sorry, Mark. If you've got 8 million people in London and they're all driving, of course it's going to be pretty bad. But it's nothing compared to the pea supers of the 50s and 60s, where there was coal fires and smog all over the place.
Correct.
However, any successful economy needs sovereign fuel supply, and we don't have it. Do you know what we've done? We have contracted it out again to our enemies. A lot of our energy comes in directly from Russia, and Russia can just turn the plug at any point. I mean, what a ludicrous position to find ourselves in. We buy our fuel from France, who get it from Russia and feed it back to us. That's not net zero, that's net bonkers.
Oh, well said. The front page of The Sun, Paul, new low in shoplifting epidemic. Costa del Crime, high street coffee chain hires bouncers to guard grub. This is an exclusive from a good friend of ours, Thomas Godfrey. Costa coffee bosses have hired bouncers to protect their food and drink as the shoplifting epidemic hits a new low. Security guards have been deployed in stores where items are stolen by brazen thieves multiple times a day, including in London and Manchester. One Costa customer said yesterday they've clearly hit the tipping point. Has it come to this, that one of the great civilizations of history has to have bouncers on the door of a coffee shop, Paul?
Oh, well, it's terrible. There's no two ways about it. Let's not.
This is not Weatherspoons on a Saturday night in Cardiff City Centre. This is Costa. This is my Americano and a muffin.
We, as a culture, used to police ourselves. It wasn't that there wasn't crime. It wasn't that there weren't issues.
Correct.
But the vast bulk of our culture respected, shop owners, business owners, and we policed ourselves. That's gone out the window because they've told us for years and years and years that there is no such thing as British culture, imported the third world and said this will do and there's no difference between you and them, which was an absolute lie. And it's no surprise that we've ended up at this point. Now, I know this is red meat to our listeners, but it's true. It's absolutely true. There's nothing bigoted about it. There's nothing racist about it. The data shows that if you have an influx of people with differing culture and you don't admit to yourself, if you've got a government that does not protect its own incumbent culture, you will get the worst of all cultures. And as a result, you will need bouncers on coffee shops in high streets.
Well, I completely agree.
Mad.
I totally agree. It's where we are. We've brought this on ourselves, Paul. We're talking about whether we're going to be stuck with Starmer for 3 years. Can Britain survive another 3 years of Starmer in number 10? Sarah near Plymouth. Good morning, Sarah. How are you? Sarah has said, hello, Mark. Although only a junior minister, I think that the person we could be looking at is Mike Cain as a decent Labour leader. Watch him on YouTube. Speaking in Parliament, he's the only Labour MP who inspires any confidence. Also, some reaction to my praise for Shabana Mahmood, the Labour Home Secretary. Dolan, if you're a true journalist, you should stop bigging up Mahmood until you've investigated her role in the many acts of corruption that she's involved with, starting with the scandal of all the waste rubbish dumped in huge quantities alongside country roadsides. MSM investigation is needed. What about this from Steve? Morning, Mark. Right wing, Mahmood? I don't think so. For a start, she'll be well aware that the rhetoric to keep the Labour rights vote will never get supported by the rest of the Labour MPs. Second, how come the socialists are all on six-figure salaries, hardly slumming it, are they? Steve, thank you for that. Can this country survive 3 years of Starmer in number 10. And what about this? Breaking news this morning. The Chagos surrender has been halted as a result of pressure from Donald Trump. The Chagos Islands will remain British. Here's a voice note from Kevin.
Good morning, Mark. Kevin in Sheffield. Great news about the Chagos Island deal, that it's probably not happening now. I've no doubt in the next coming hours and days you'll get politicians from various parties saying it were them that pushed Keir Starmer into this decision. But I've no doubt it's Nigel Farage and Reform that have made this happen, purely because the other parties just wanted this to quietly go through and hopefully none of us would notice.
Kevin, thank you for your voice note. Keep those voice notes coming. It's all about your feedback and your thoughts. David has said, Mark, 3 more years of Starmer. Well, it's not Starmer, it's the Labour government. If he's replaced, then we'll get the same idiots running the place. It won't make a difference. We need them all out. We need a general election ASAP. Sean in Bridlington. Good morning, Sean. Sean says, Mark, we weren't around to witness the fall of the Roman Empire, the Aztecs, or other great civilizations. However, we have a front seat watching the demise and fall of Western liberal democracy, I'm afraid. Well, I wish I could disagree, but it's very, very clear that the evidence is mounting in your favour, Sean. So much to get through. Prince Harry is going to be sued by the charity that he co-founded. And can Britain survive another 3 years of Starmer in number 10? 6:46, this is Talk Breakfast.
Good morning to you. This is Tour the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Just breaking news in the last couple of moments. Extraordinary news. Not just that the police have arrived at the Sandringham estate where Prince Andrew, as was now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, is currently living since being thrown out of the Windsor estate. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's an extraordinary revelation. And certainly what's been contained in the Epstein files was released in the last few weeks. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Damon in Wigan has messaged the show. Good morning, Mark. Labour don't care about the United Kingdom. All they want to do is destroy this country because they hate the once great country that we have. And we're in serious trouble now. This country will be unrecognisable in 3 years. Mark, says Damon. Why did I serve in the army for this? Damon, can I thank you for your service to this country? Keep the faith, folks. Change is coming. Bring popcorn. Speaking of popcorn, a massive development for Prince Harry. Front page of today's Daily Mirror, royal bombshell, Harry sued. Prince faces defamation battle with his former African charity. For reaction, I'm delighted to welcome broadcaster Paul Cox. Paul, can I get your reaction to this news? How the mighty have fallen. Yeah. A figure within the royal family who was once more popular than Queen Elizabeth, now being sued for libel by the charity he co-founded in the memory of his mother Diana.
Yeah, it has been incredible, hasn't it? And there's one person that seems to be a common denominator in this, and that's his wife, Meghan Markle. But we won't go into that too much right now. What I would say is this charity must really have some beef and some evidence, because taking a royal or an ex-royal to court for libel was no mean feat, an incredibly expensive thing to do. So they must fancy their chances in order to do so. And should they win, I mean, the idea that Prince Harry would have this on his record as well, and the millions and millions of pounds that it would cost him, is kind of unthinkable, really. This is something, unfortunately, is quite inevitable on the path that Harry has taken. He didn't need to do what he's done. He could have even left the royal family. There's lots of questions over that, but he could have done it in a far different way than he has done now. They've gone on this, please don't look at us tour, and they've ended up in an incredible position where now he's being sued. He has no real future. They have to do all sorts of seedy things in order to make money. I really don't know how this ends for him. I think ultimately there are still people in the country that would be interested in Prince Harry coming back to the UK and starting over again. But I think that's the only way out for him now.
I'm loving Please Don't Look at Us tour. That is line of the century. But it's no laughing matter if, as you've said, he's on the hook for millions. If he loses this case, this libel action being brought by Sentebale, the charity he co-founded, if he also loses his legal action against the owners of the Daily Mail newspaper for how they gathered information around stories about Harry 15, 20 years ago, if he loses those cases back to back, he's going to be under serious financial pressure.
Oh, yes, he is. And I'm sure that they're relatively well off. But if you start taking 10, 20 million pounds from someone, you're not that well off anymore. These are as a royal, you've got an income. You're not generating. You're not a business. You've got an income, and you're relying on the firm. Outside of that, you've got to generate all your own money. And now I'm sure that there's some inheritance and some money trickling in, but not to the extent that it would pay for tens of millions of pounds to go out. So he will have to win this or essentially be bankrupt, I would have thought.
Most definitely. I think it's a real concern. And yes, as you've implied, they do have a few $1 million in the bank, but their outgoings are huge. It's my understanding that the mortgage on their Montecito home is in the region of $500,000 a year. Security costs, kids in private school, cost of travel, you name it, staff as well. And let's not forget that their income is subject to the law of diminishing returns. As you implied in your earlier answer, Paul, they're having to sell their wares to the highest bidder. Meghan is charging $2,000 for the great privilege of having lunch in her company, which would, in my personal opinion, create a rather significant amount of acid reflux. Harry was charging $1 million for a speaking engagement. His rate is now $50K, which is great money for you and I, Paul, but not much when you've got a lifestyle like the Prince has.
Yeah, look, it's all relative, isn't it? If you give us 50K, we'd enjoy a very good time. If you give Harry 50K, it's going to pay, like you say, his mortgage for the month. So everything's relative. And they're clearly living to the means that they would like, but don't have the ability to earn that sort of money. But we know this because there's no real inherent talent. I'm not being unkind here. If there was, then one of the Netflix shows would have taken off. One of the ridiculous podcasts would have taken off. Some of the products would have taken off. Absolutely everything, particularly that Meghan's touched, has turned to nothing. They've just taken money from the deal and gone on to the next thing because it hasn't worked. So having no discernible talent means that you've got no real way of cashing in. So I don't know what their plan would be. I guess, and I don't know this, I'm not a royal expert, plan Z is to rejoin the royal family, because that's probably the only way out. But I don't know how they do that. I certainly don't know how they do that with Meghan Markle in tow.
Well, I think you've demonstrated a considerable degree of royal expertise because, Paul, I think that is Plan Z, which is to get back into the royal family. Why? Because that's the meal ticket, isn't it? Their value has always been their royal connections. That's why the book Spare was successful, and that's why the Netflix documentary about the couple was successful, because it was all about the royal family. The minute they started doing documentaries about polo or started buying the rights to boring non-fiction books that never saw the light of day, it's been unsuccessful. And we know about the hot mess, the dumpster fire that is Meghan's retail business as ever. So, you know, the bottom line is that they need to be royals again in order to be financially viable. Harry probably needs a few quid from his dad as well. Dad, can you sub me a few million just to keep the lights on? But the million-dollar question is whether that's going to happen. I mean, do you think that as Charles reaches the autumn of his years, that he should reach out to his son? Do you think Charles should welcome Harry back to the fold?
I mean, I don't know if he has or hasn't. It would. My advice would be for him to obviously keep that door open. It would be sad for him not to do so. Both him and William have had difficult lives, having lost their mother in 1997. Of course, this is not news.
Yeah.
But they've both taken very different paths in life. Now, you could argue that William was always going to go on one path and be supported in a different way, and that could be difficult. For someone like Harry, who was an extrovert and had a lot to offer, but probably felt he wasn't getting the attention or the opportunity that he deserved. However, for some reason along the way, he's met one or two people that have just completely misled him, and I think we're seeing at least one of them in those images right now.
I think you're being very tactful about Meghan. You're being far too gentlemanly.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I don't know. And I try not to read everything and believe everything, but come on, there's a common denominator here, and it's not worked out well for him. Now, we've all fallen in love, and we've all sort of been maybe we've had our whole life thrown into disarray in a sense that it's taken us on a different path, or we've changed from the person that we once were. I think people can understand him having a relationship with Meghan Markle. Perhaps people can even understand him wanting to be slightly removed from the royal family, because this is tremendous pressure. But at the same time, he could have done this so differently, and the only reason I can think he didn't is because he had Merkel. Sorry, not Merkel. He did not marry Angela Merkel. He married Meghan Markle. He had Markle in his ear, and I don't think that she is in any way helped him.
Yes, indeed. I can't imagine which would be the worst spouse, Angela Merkel, the woman responsible for completely getting rid of Germany's energy independence and facilitating Brexit and doing a load of other things, opening the door to mass immigration, or Meghan Markle, grifter-in-chief, which is lesser of two evils. Briefly, Paul, what we're seeing here with Centre Barley is a quite serious libel action against the Prince, and he's been told off in the past by the Charity Commission, who said that actually he was airing public conflict about Centre Barley, in the newspapers. He shouldn't have done that. So he's already had his collar felt about that and his wrist slapped. So to what extent does his handling of this Centre Barley row represent his general approach to all matters these days? Yeah,
of course. I mean, this is testament to that. He's got no boundaries. He's got no guidance. He's not been taught, or if he has been taught, he hasn't listened. Life is difficult for a royal. I'm not saying it's easy, but also at the same time, quite contradicting, it is easy as long as you play the game. Great opportunity was given to Harry. With the Invictus Games, the whole of the Commonwealth was open up to him. The Queen did absolutely everything she could for the man. In fact, when he ran with that pre-Markle, It was great success. He went to the Caribbean. He won them back over. They were seeking independence from the UK. All of a sudden, he was incredibly popular, and they weren't seeking that anymore. So under the right guidance, I think his life could be a lot easier, but outside, he hasn't got a clue.
Wise words. Fascinating. The conversation continues. This is Talk Breakfast.
My fellow Americans, let me begin by congratulating the team at NASA and our brave astronauts on the successful launch of Artemis 2. It was quite something. It will be traveling further than any manned rocket has ever flown and will very substantially pass the moon, go around it, and come back home from a distance that has never been done before. It's amazing.
Roger, roll pitch. Integrity, AMT high.
Due to that suit being pressurized and expanded, as well as the umbilicals being connected.
We are now falling to the moon rather than rising away from Earth. It is an amazing milestone.
We are standing by for the Integrity crew aboard Orion to surpass the Apollo 13 record.
Integrity, we're now resuming operational audio comm.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Three minutes past 7. I'm back in the house, and boy, have I missed you. Mark Dolan on Talk Breakfast, the home of common sense. A big show to come. A very good morning to one and all. Your weekend starts here. And breaking this morning, U-turn number 20. Starmer stops the Chagos surrender. The islands will stay British. We'll bring full reaction. Meanwhile, US Vice President J.D. Vance flies in for talks with Iran, telling the Iranians, don't play games with us. So will a deal be tied up before the weekend is out? What do you make of this war? Is the world a safer place since America went into Iran? How do you think history will judge Donald Trump's intervention in the Middle East? And what about this? More breaking news. How the mighty have fallen. Prince Harry is to be sued for libel in the High Court by the charity that he co-founded in memory of his mother, Diana. If he loses, he could be on the hook for millions. We'll bring you the latest on the prodigal prince's extraordinary fall from grace. Now, my priority for the entirety of this show is to get your opinions on the radio and on the telly. So give us a call, 0344 499 1000. We're putting a simple question to you this morning. Can the UK survive another 3 years of Starmer in number 10? It's my understanding that there is no figure that the party can unite around to replace Sir Keir, so it does look like we're stuck with him. Can Britain survive another 3 years of Starmer in number 10? My number is 0344 499 1000. Tommy's on the phones today doing a great job, so give him a call now. You can also text the word talk in your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note, and as the saying goes, let's talk. You can hear us on the radio, DAB+, in-app and online, or you can watch the show. Head to YouTube, search Talking Up We Pop. Davis is directing our TV output this morning. Tommy's on the phones. George is pressing the buttons, and Big Phil Dave is the executive producer of the show. And I don't know about you, but I think I'm sounding better already. New and improved. So much to get through, but shall we kick off with your opinions? George, get me a voice note ready if you can. 3 more years of Labour. Can Britain survive 3 more years of Starmerism? Here is a voice note from Anna.
Morning, Mark. Anna, sorry. If I were Keir Starmer and I wanted to unite the country around me, make my party scared of me because I'm so popular, which is pretty much what Nigel Farage does, I would get rid of Ed Millipede and open up British gas, British oil. I think you'd find the majority of the country would suddenly forget their allegiance to Mad Ed and Big Ange, and suddenly we'd all like Keir Starmer. I mean, I would also put up the basic rate of allowance to 20 grand, but then I would tax all benefits from 20,000 onwards. I think you find most people would get around that. I haven't touched benefits. I've dropped the price of fuel, and I've got rid of my enemies alongside it. I mean, come on, Keir. I'm not that bright, and I can work that one out. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Anna, you most certainly are bright. And by the way, engineer George loves Ed Millipede. It had him chuckling. And, you know, all of the things you said are the right thing to do. And that's the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch. So, Anna, you and I are allied on this one. Can Britain survive 3 more years of Labour? That is today's conversation. Down the line, I'm delighted to welcome comedian and broadcaster Paul Cox and one of the most experienced broadcast journalists in the country, Linda Jubilee. Good morning, Linda.
Good morning, Mark. And good morning, Paul.
It's great to see
Linda.
both of you. Linda, we've got to deal with the breaking news, and it's huge. This cannot be undersold or underestimated. Prime Minister forced by Trump to abandon Chagos plan. The Chagos Islands surrender, dead in the water, Linda.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of think that in one way this is the nail in the coffin of his credibility in one way. But I don't think that a lot of people have suggested that he will go after the May elections, which are forecast to be totally disastrous for him. But I don't think he will go that quickly. I hear from inside the tent that could be much nearer to the autumn or even early next year. But I do think that what he won't do is survive until the next general election. And in many ways, it's the current geopolitical crisis that has forced his hand where the Chagos Islands are concerned. But, you know, he's not selling bacon behind the counter at Woolworths. You can tell how old I am. He is the Prime Minister of this country, and he should have been able to foresee why it is so, apart from the feelings of the Chagosian people, why it was such a stupid, and I'm using President Trump's precise word, such a stupid thing to do to get into this mess with the Chagos Islands, and in particular Diego Garcia.
Linda, you are our unofficial fact-checker-in-chief on this show. There's not much you get wrong given your many decades in journalism, both print and television. Are you claiming that Woolworths used to sell bacon?
I know they did. But
I didn't know. I thought it was pick and mix and transistor radios.
We used to get pick and mix every Saturday night as a family. and we would sit round the television eating those chocolates. But I assure you, there was a bacon counter, and right up until Woolworths closed, which I think was only something like 2012, 2013, it was always my favourite shop.
Oh, I still miss it. Bring it back. Well, notwithstanding our nostalgia, Paul Cox, for Woolworths, there won't be any nostalgia for this deal that saw us give sovereign territory to an ally of China, and we were going to pay for the privilege of it.
Yeah, look, I think it'll be studied as a case of what not to do, unfortunately, in the future. Other than those entirely excited by international law, you couldn't really find anybody that thought this was in any way a good deal for anybody, other than, as we've already discussed, Mark, the Mauritians, who couldn't believe their luck, and of course their allies China. So, and indirectly, I'd imagine Russia too. So, no, this is the right thing to do. This is not, somehow I just imagine over the coming hours and days, particularly next week when the weekend's finished, because we all know that Keir Starmer doesn't like to work weekends. We're gonna probably find that Keir Starmer and the Labour Party have twisted this in some way to say that this was the right thing to do, and that they were always going to make this decision if certain information came to light, etc., or blame it on Iran or something else. But one thing is for sure: this was not an intelligent deal. And very few people backed it, Mark.
Most definitely. Well, Paul and Linda, we're joined on the line by Matthew in Warrington. Good morning, Matthew. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Good morning, everyone. It's a wet one in Warrington today.
Oh, my goodness. Bring a brolly. That little kind of stint of hot weather is rather short-lived, Matthew.
Yeah, definitely. It ain't raining, it ain't training, as they used to say in the army, so let's have it on.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that. What do you think of all of this, Matthew?
I think Keir Starmer is about as popular as a dose of crabs in an army barracks. He's the worst Prime Minister we have ever experienced in history, not just in our living times, in history. He's weak, he stutters when he's questioned, and he knows when you're lying, his eyes are everywhere, his bottom lip's gibbering, and then when he comes across when he thinks he's on one that he's all confident, he's a big world leader. He's going to sneak us back into Europe any way he can and blame it all on Brexit. Or blame it on the war in Iran.
Yeah.
What we missed this since Brexit's gone on. We've missed the trick, right? All these politicians, both sides, Tories and Labour, they've all hated the British people because we voted to leave. It was our vote, and they didn't like it. And we're not clever enough. We're not. Who are we to vote?
Yeah.
Who are we to go against the establishment? And it started off with Cameron, and it rolled on through. Just came in and she tried something different, and the establishment got rid of her because she didn't suit the Tory party. The Tory faithful voted Truss in, and it was the Tory MPs that got her out. And yeah, all right, she made some crazy decisions far too quick. And then everyone jumped on that. Boris was a big world of hope, and he was a whirlwind of shame. Brexit, COVID killed Boris off, and then we've just got the Labour Party who come in. And he was asking he's not been right from day one. From the moment he got in and he got Liz Gray in, or whatever her name is, she had that 100-day thing and messed that up completely, and he got fancy suits. He's introduced things that wasn't on the manifest, ID cards.
Jury trials.
Jury trials, taxing the pensioners and farmers. He's gone for the people who... And then he's give big pay rises to the train drivers and to all the doctors, and they're all still striking, and he can't get anything in because the backbenchers won't let him. And we missed a trick. We go on about Europe. We have the Commonwealth, and when we left Brexit, we should have worked on the Commonwealth. We would have been a mighty nation now with big, massive alloys. And America would be coming to us to do a trade deal because we've got the Commonwealth. And no one wants to know about that because it's the Commonwealth and it was imperialism. No, we'll go back to Europe. We'll let everyone in who comes across from Africa and Eastern Europe, and we'll just pay for it. I can remember in the 80s, we had 1 million people on the dole, and it was a national disaster. Everyone was kicking off because we had 1 million. How many we got now? About 5-6 million people on the dole, if not more, because they've messed the numbers up.
Well, there are 10 million working age adults not active in the economy at the moment, Matthew. And at the moment now, the welfare bill is higher than the tax take of the country.
When you got the dole back in the 80s, you had enough to maybe just see you through with food. Not that we could go buy a flat screen television every time. The dole is there just to help you through, and it would make you go out and get work. Now, there's no incentive to go and work because you earn more money on the dole.
Well, Matthew, let me give you a stat which is just coming in. You know, this week has seen the lifting of the two-child benefit cap.
It's ridiculous.
Right. So if I'll give you the numbers, Matthew. If a single parent has 5 children, she will receive £40,000 a year tax-free. You'd need to earn 65, 70k just to pull that in through work.
Well, that's what exactly. I've got 3 children. One's grown up, one's at college, and one's at school. And me and my wife work Monday to Saturday, and we try and do our best to keep a roof over our heads. You know, it's a struggle. The kids want things.
Of course they do.
Holidays. You've got a car. You know, we can't get the bus to Manchester because you've got to work. You've got to pay the taxes. You've got to pay the fuel prices. But you might as well just say, oh, you know what? I'll throw my hat in. I'll go and get a nice little rented accommodation. Get the council to pay for it, and we'll just sit here and watch ITV. And it's wrong. You should be made to think, you know what? I cannot feed my kids, so I will have to get off my backside and go get a job so I can put food on the table and clothes on the backs of my children. Otherwise, we're homeless. I can remember when my mum in the 80s, she couldn't afford to pay the electricity. We had 3 days we had no electricity. We were walking around in the dark with candles because she had no money. So we all went out and, you know, got a paper round, and we all took tea because that's what you had to do in them days. But now everything's on the never, never. That doesn't mean anything to anyone. You don't get people knocking on your door going, you've not paid your rent. You know, every Thursday there'd be a queue outside the corner shop with kids with little pieces of paper asking so you can get some potatoes and mincemeat on tick till you get paid on Tuesday.
The attitude to welfare has completely changed, and you're so right, Matthew. And it used to be the bare bones, and you could just enough to survive. Now it's a lifestyle choice. Matthew, we could talk for hours. Quick one before I let you go, because I've got to bring Linda and Paul in. Are you ex-military, Matthew?
I am ex-Welsh Guards, and I volunteer now with the RAF Cadets, and it's the best thing I've ever done. It gives me faith in the young people. We have 130 young people who come here and they volunteer, and it makes me believe that there is still hope in our youth today. It's not all feckless, it's not all TikTok and Snapchat. They all come down there, they do the Duke of Edinburgh, they learn about the military, they learn social skills. It's an amazing place.
Well, look,
the dad that I never had, mate.
More power to you for doing that. Matthew, what I want you to do, make a commitment to be a regular on the show, because I really want to hear your thoughts, because you've got skin in the game, you've got a family, life is not easy, you've got to make tough decisions to keep the wolf from the door. You're putting something back into the community, and you've served this country in combat. So you know, you are the kind of person that my audience want to hear from.
Mark, you're the kind of person that we want to listen to, because you're a credit to the talk. It's a pleasure to listen to you.
Oh, my gosh, thank you. Matthew, I really appreciate that. But before I let you go, Matthew, quick one. If you, as you're ex-military, what is your reaction to the news that Donald Trump has blocked the Chagos Islands surrender?
That's just the beginning of it. That's just a start. He's not forgot when Labour was sending party actives over during the elections to go against him. He's going to, once the king spins to America, he's going to go for the jugular of Starmer. I don't respect him having a go about our aircraft carriers and our ships, because that's our military. And I lost a bit of respect for him when he had a pop about our military not doing their bit for Iraq. Because I know lads who were in Iraq, and they did their bit, and Afghan. So I think that was very disrespectful. But what he's gone for Starmer now, and it's going to get worse. He's going to get slaughtered in the elections, and then when the king spins to America, he's going to go for Starmer, because he's a weak prime minister, and everyone knew it was wrong. You've got Harmer just making decisions, going against international law. International law doesn't mean anything. War is war. You kill or be killed. You do what you need to do so people can sleep safe at night. You know, I'm surprised anyone wants to do anything in the military now, because in 10 years' time, Starmer and it will be coming to prosecute you. That's why he doesn't want to get involved now, because he doesn't want another Tony Blair incident with the Iraq. Oh, no, we broke international law.
You're right.
Never mind law. These bad people do bad things.
Too right, which is why, Matthew, Winston Churchill flattened Dresden. That was probably a so-called war crime. Well, he wanted to defeat Hitler. He was successful. Matthew, let's continue this conversation. Really appreciate your call, and more power to you with those cadets, by the way, and all my best to you and yours, because life is not easy for Matthew. It's not easy for anybody that's out there trying to make a living, trying to make ends meet. And that's why we exist, is to give you a voice. And that's what talk is about. Paul and Linda, my goodness, where to start with that one? A very, very important call from Matthew. Paul, how would you process what we've heard there from Matthew just now?
Well, I kind of feel slightly ashamed. I feel like I should give Matthew some of my fee. That was great stuff. And like you say, it'd be great to hear from Matthew again. He was spot on. He was absolutely spot on. I think particularly when he talked about what Donald Trump has got planned. This is a man who doesn't take being slighted or ignored or not helped very lightly. He's very litigious. He can't obviously be litigious against the UK or Keir Starmer, but he is not going to stand for almost anything that Keir Starmer hasn't done to help him out. So I think that if you're in the camp of wanting to see Keir Starmer go soon, and I think Linda's right, unfortunately. Linda's often right. In fact, I've never heard her be wrong. But I think that maybe he will stay beyond May because there is no replacement. But I think that if you're in the camp of wanting to see Keir Starmer go, Donald Trump is your man. You might not like Donald Trump, but Donald Trump is the one who's going to crowbar Keir Starmer out of power, I think.
How interesting. What a story. Paul, loved your company this morning. Please join us again soon. Paul Cox Comedy on YouTube. The most brilliant videos. Witty, clever, beautifully put together. Paul Cox, thank you. We'll catch up soon. Can Britain survive another 3 years of Starmer in number 10? And is Trump going to make life difficult for Starmer when the King visits later this month? Linda Jubilee gives her reaction on that next.
Welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
That's Rachel Reeves, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McCown.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle from Suits, and that's about it.
I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going. I have 0% beers, and I feel
raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of this desperation.
Is public transport good value for money?
No, it isn't.
You really don't like speaking to people.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Talk Breakfast 7:24, and Linda has messaged the show. Good morning, Mark. Linda from Worcester here. Matt from Warrington, your caller, was absolutely right about war and international law. If we were fighting Hitler now in World War II, well, we would not defeat him. He wouldn't have given a toss about international law, but we would have been hamstrung. We would have lost. This from Colin. Good morning, Mark. Britain is totally broken. We're being taken over by this radical left-wing government who are encouraging these Islamist groups getting a foothold in our society. Jess says, finally, the right decision with Chagos. I would like full disclosure as to how much evil Lord Hermer has earned from this plan to date. Down the line, I'm delighted to welcome Linda Jubilee, broadcaster and journalist and communications consultant. Linda, how damaging could this Chagos Islands U-turn be to Sir Keir Starmer?
I think it's very damaging. I think I said earlier that this is possibly, in some respects, the final nail in the coffin of his credibility. And I think this will really focus people's opinion, because there are many, many problems here, but to actually lose control of this situation just as we face our greatest geopolitical crisis since the Cold War, even since the Second World War, is utterly disgraceful. And I think your caller that identified Lord Hermer, well, that's a very, very important point, because earlier this week, I had a chat with, a very long chat with, a former senior military advisor who was absolutely outraged at what has gone on with these ghost Russian ships in the Channel. Yeah. They've just sailed into the Channel. They're monitoring our valuable underwater cables. And he said to me, this is utterly disgraceful. And I said, well, what should happen? And he said, the Royal Navy should board those vessels. And the point is, we don't do that, which might sound very, it's not as extreme as it sounds. That's what should be happening. Yeah. We can't do it because Lord Hermer has decided that we need to take legal proceedings each and every time an incident like that arises. Now, you can't do that in warfare. Every single military person understands that.
Most definitely they do. And Linda, an interesting point from Paul Cox and also our earlier caller, Matthew, suggesting that Donald Trump is going to make life very uncomfortable for Sir Keir Starmer when the King visits the United States later this month.
Yeah, I think Sir Keir Starmer is very lucky that at the moment President Trump has the brakes on because of this royal visit. And this royal visit is tremendously important to the King, and tremendously important because this is a visit for the American people. It's not about so much a presidential visit. This commemorates the 250th anniversary of the setting up of the United States. And that is a huge event. But I think once we're past that, I think the gloves will be off. And President Trump, who is known to have a long memory where some of these things are concerned, will start bearing up to more than he has done so far, even more than he has done so far, to Keir Starmer.
And we were mulling over whether or not the country is stuck with Starmer. Our question today, Linda, can the United Kingdom survive another 3 years of Sir Keir in number 10? You think he might survive for the next few months but won't fight the next election?
Definitely. I don't think we need to worry so much about the next 3 years. We all believe that the local elections in May will be a total disaster for the Labour Party, but that doesn't necessarily signal the end for Keir Starmer, because who's going to replace him? And frankly, at the moment, there are no appealing opponents, but also those people who might like to launch a leadership channel probably don't want to do it precisely at this point. They've got reasons for delaying things. So I think if Keir Starmer can limp into the summer recess, which seems likely, his biggest moment of peril, and I'm told this from inside the Labour tent, his biggest moment of peril will come as Parliament reconvenes in the autumn. It may not come immediately, it might be towards the end of this year or the beginning of next year. But I doubt that he can survive the whole 3 years until the general election. I can't find anyone that agrees with that point of view.
He just appears to be a hostage to fortune, doesn't he? So when it comes to the domestic agenda, such as rather unambitious cuts to the scope and scale of disability benefits, thwarted by his backbenchers. Similarly, you know, so many policies that he'd like to roll out that he's not able to because of the party, those behind him on those backbenchers, his own cabinet in revolt, and then the president, the thorn in his side. So this guy is being blown around by multiple political headwinds.
But he will be blown about because I think I've said this before. At the end of the day, he does not have a vision. And if you haven't got a vision, you can't possibly assemble a strategy, which means that you can't make a tactical plan. Now, the fact of the matter is that you remember that phrase that Sir Keir Starmer was carrying a Ming vase across a tiled floor just before the last general election because he had to be so careful. That's very true. He had to tread a careful line between appealing to the city, the finance sector, the corporate sector, the commercial sector. He had to be appealing to those people in order to get into government. But that is diametrically opposed to what his backbenchers think and feel. So as soon as there is any contretemps, as there was over the benefits, his backbenchers, who are all on wafer-thin majorities, he's got a big majority, but it's a mile wide and an inch deep. All those backbenchers who are on very fine majorities, very fine margins there, are all going to vote against him. Also, they may well be ideologically opposed to his original position when he took power in this country. And that makes his life very, very difficult and his existence very, very tenuous.
Fascinating stuff. Let's take a voice note if we can, George. This is Nigel regarding Sir Keir Starmer and the involvement of the BBC. Take a listen.
Morning, Mark. Nigel from Brighton here. I fully believe that Starmer will survive the May elections and stay in post for another 3 years. The main reason for this is that the mainstream media, led by the BBC, will continue to push their pro-Labour agenda. When the results come in for May, they'll spin it with a narrative saying that Labour's done better than anticipated and actually reform haven't lived up to expectations. The BBC's been gaslighting the population for the last 18 months, avoiding negative Labour stories like Morgan McSweeney's missing phone. But did you actually see this week the BBC's article on Wednesday where they said that house prices fell in March due to the Iran war? It didn't mention anything to do with Rachel from Accounts' budget and the effect that that had on the economy. And if you think about it, it's actually completely implausible that a war started on the 28th of February would impact house transactions in March. I did a little research and it said that house prices lagged global events and national events by about 3 to 6 months. But the BBC's never let the facts stand in the way of an opportunity to push their political beliefs. Anyway, keep up the good work. Nigel from Brighton here.
Nigel, thank you for a very articulate and very interesting voice note. Linda Jubilee, your reaction to what Nigel had to say there?
I think Nigel has raised many, many good points. But to say that the BBC is the only voice in town is clearly not the case, not these days. There are plenty of other people bashing the drum in a pro-Starmer way at the moment. But he has raised good points about the sort of gaslighting of the British people. However, I don't think he's right that Starmer will exist as Prime Minister for another 3 years. I think he will be gone before then, because at the end of the day, he does have a total lack of leadership. No one's saying that behind closed doors, socially, he might not be a nice guy. People might agree that he's a well-educated lawyer, but he doesn't have leadership qualities, and that is never going to change. It is never, ever going to be the bedrock of his administration. The fact is, he can't lead, and therefore, no one's following.
I'm delighted to say that Linda Jubilee is joining us in the next part. We've got a simple question. Can Britain survive another 3 years of Starmer in number 10? This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk Breakfast. It is 7:36. Can Britain survive another 3 years of Sir Keir Starmer in number 10? Reacting to the big stories of the day, Linda Jubilee, broadcaster, journalist and communications consultant. And Linda, can I ask you, this is another breaking story, it's a developing story. You've covered the royal beat in the past. Front page of the Daily Mirror, royal bombshell, Harry sued, Prince faces defamation battle with his former African charity. How the mighty have fallen.
Indeed, and there is a really big background to this Centre Barley charity. He's had his horns locked with them for some time now, and now they've gone to court and they're actually suing him from libel. The problem for Prince Harry is that he turns everything into such a battle without thinking whether he can win the war, and he just is involved now in what I think is a very, very ill-advised court case with Centre Barley. I mean, the problem is that is precisely the charity that was set up kind of in memory for his mother. And I think because of that, he should have never have pursued this legal action. The charity world can be a viperous world. It's fraught with really big, challenging difficulties, and he should have stayed well clear of this, but of course he hasn't. I don't know whether this is intertwined with the fact that he has failed really in many of his business interests, where he's obviously co-linked with Meghan. That may be a factor. But if I were him, I would concentrate on how I could meaningfully earn money, effectively earn money, and leave this kind of activity behind.
Well, I completely agree with you. I think that's a very fair assessment. Front page of the Daily Mail, Linda, another story. We're sitting on a gold mine. North Sea oil hits a record high. So why won't Red Ed Miliband drop his net zero madness and back new drilling to give Britain a boost? It's my understanding that the majority of Brits now think, Linda, that we should drill, baby, drill.
As one of your earlier callers called him, Ed Millipede. It seems to
harsh
be
but fair.
Yes, harsh but fair. The fact of the matter, when I first looked at this situation and I looked at the North Sea Basin, which is 92% drilled of oil, I think, and 88% drilled for gas, I wondered how productive the two areas, Jackdaw and Rosebank, could be. But I've since spoken to some experts, and Jackdaw in particular can be exploited successfully. And I think they are universally agreed that right now, when we are in very, very perilous times, both militarily and financially, jackdaw has to be the thing that will help us in our hour of need. We need to drill, and we need to drill quickly. The experts suggest that that could start having a material effect as soon as this autumn, and that's what we need to do. Of course, we need to invest in renewables, and I believe that we need to invest in nuclear power, but that will take a long time to come good, maybe a decade or more. But we need to do something effective as quickly as possible, because frankly, we have lost economic momentum in this country, and that's a very big problem when it is combined with such a large slab of the population which is now economically inactive. As you pointed out, the welfare bin in this country is the same size as our tax take. Anyone can say that that is a very, very tough situation going forwards, that we have to acknowledge before we even start moving towards the solution.
Wise words. Linda Jubilee for Prime Minister. Linda, thank you so much for your valuable time. Look forward to catching up in the near future. One of the most experienced journalists and broadcasters in the country, communications consultant to boot. Linda Jubilee, thank you for your time. Mary is in Cyprus. Good morning, Mary.
Hello, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well indeed, and I'm actually celebrating this morning because we've got the news, front page of the Times newspaper. Prime Minister is forced by Donald Trump to abandon the Chagos plan. We will not be giving away the Chagos Islands. Your reaction?
Well, my reaction is thank you very much, President Trump. You've done a very good job there. But please, will you... when Prince Charles gets over to see you, will you please suggest to Prince Charles that as he can't say anything to Starboard to get out, would you mind doing it, Donald? Because he seems to listen to you. We need him out in an election.
Mary, if Starmer goes, is that a case of be careful what you wish for, given that his successor will likely be to the left of him in the party?
Well, I wasn't suggesting that should happen. I'm suggesting that...
you want an election?
Should resign and have an election. So, I mean, I wish Mr. Trump really had said something to Starmer when he was in the Middle East. For God's sake, get out, mind your own business, get back to your own country and sort your own problems out.
Isn't it strange that the President of the United States seems more concerned about the British national interest than our own Prime Minister, Mary? This is a president who said it's remarkable that we're not drilling for oil and gas on our own shores during an energy crisis, who said it's remarkable that we have open borders, which is threatening the British way of life, and who thinks it's remarkable that we were going to pay £35 million to give away sovereign territory. Why does Trump care about Britain and our Prime Minister seemingly not?
Well, I mean, I can't answer that, but excuse me, Donald's mother was a Scottish lady, I believe, and so he's got sort of British blood in him, if you like. Starmer, I don't know what he's got in him. I mean, he's just got nothing, really. He's just, I mean, he's such a dour, boring, unimaginative man. It's unbelievable.
Is there a defence, Mary, is there a defence that can be made for the Prime Minister that he's inherited broken public services from the Tories, an economy on its knees, the highest tax burden since the Second World War, enormous cost of government borrowing, a broken country gifted to us by the Tories, not Labour, and that he's doing his best to fix it?
Well, no, because I'm sorry, Mark, I don't agree with that, because look what... Richard III, as Jeremy calls her, has done.
Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Yes. I mean, she hasn't helped, has she? I don't think that she's probably a very nice lady, but I don't think she's qualified to do the job, to balance the books. I think that she's made it worse. There's no way that what she has done was going to put right what the Tories allegedly depends how you look at it, because actually when what's his name is in, then the financial outlook was beginning to look better.
Oh, Rishi Sunak.
Yes, when Rishi Sunak was there, it was beginning to look better.
Well, it was, Mary. We had the highest growth in the G7 and inflation was at 2%, which is exactly the Bank of England's target. I don't know about you. I'd have him back in a flash, but each to their own. Mary, I'll have you back in a flash too. Call me soon. Loved your company this morning. You are listening to Talk Breakfast. Can the UK survive another 3 years of Starmer in number 10? This is Talk Breakfast.
Current affairs, international news, letting criminals off while sending... Oi! Oi! You shut up. I'm trying to record something.
Stand by for 3 powerhouse hours of breaking news, challenging views. I don't give a flying damn about international law. I think people will viscerally reject this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Talk Breakfast 7:48. Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. Breaking news this morning, front page of the Daily Mirror newspaper, royal bombshell, Harry sued. Prince faces defamation battle with his former African charity. Prince Harry is to be sued in the High Court for libel by Sentebale, the charity that he co-founded in memory of his late mother, Diana. For reaction, we're joined now by Rupert Bell, who is Talk's royal correspondent. Good morning, Rupert.
Good morning, Mark.
Well, this is a royal bombshell. We knew there was froideur between Harry and Sentebale, but we didn't expect this.
Yes, and obviously now, because they feel, and that's Sentebale,
that they've defamed the charity, and it's basically caused all kinds of problems when they split with the charity. And that is why it has led to a potential court case now being sued. So it's not a good look for Harry. Look, he will obviously be defending that and saying he hasn't done anything wrong. But again, it questions Harry's judgment at time, and it's in the heart of it. It's just sad because I think the intentions of Senator Barley were more than honourable, but obviously a huge breakdown in a relationship with the chairman and the board of Senator Barley. Harry then leaves, and other members do as well. And as a result, Senator Barley feel that they have been impacted by this, by some very negative headlines, which has caused it difficulty for the charity to do its work. I think that's at the heart of it. But obviously, it will be interesting to see whether we end up in court with this. But obviously, it's a serious accusation at Harry and others.
There was a very public war of words, Rupert, wasn't there, between Harry and Dr. Sophie Chandauka, who is the woman that has now gained control of the charity. Some serious beef between her and the Sussexes that goes back many years.
Yes, and actually we saw some sort of manifestation of that at a polo event. Sophie wanted to take the charity in a different direction. She actually mentioned that Harry had an impact with all his negativity around his departure from the royal family and and other members of the royal family was causing the charity difficulties in turning into getting donors. So there's a lot at stake here, and a lot of, as I say, accusations from both sides. So it will be, but obviously now that they've actually thrown down this lawsuit on Harry and others, it will be interesting to see how it plays out. But you clearly can see that there is a major breakdown of trust between all sides, and it developed over years and the recent months as well.
And this has been a public relations hot mess for Harry for quite a long time, hasn't it? Because the Charity Commission investigated this row and criticised Harry for making his disagreements with Senator Barley and its leadership public. And of course, he lost control of the charity, which I think was hugely embarrassing as well. And now a court case, and this is going to be unedifying, isn't it? Harry's already suing the owners of the Daily Mail, a case that he could potentially lose, which will cost him millions. And if he loses this one as well, I mean, this is the nightmare scenario for the Prince, isn't it?
Yes, and look, he quite, obviously when you've read Spare and others, he's plays the victim card. At the moment, well, Senator Barley say they're the victim of the way they treated him, the Senator Barley charity. So it will be very interesting, the defence from Harry's point of view. So there will be lots of eyeballs on it, sort of unattractive from his point of view as he tries to, look, he's about to go to Australia and he's trying to create a new life for himself. But these endless negative, lurid headlines won't be doing his cause any good. And obviously there will be what was the impact of the Duchess of Sussex on this, on the charity, because there's a sense that she didn't like what was going on there and taking the spotlight, wanted to be in the spotlight, which added to the problems and the breakdown of communication as well. So it's going to be, it's actually quite an interesting one, I'm sure. I don't know how long it'll be before it ends up in court, but the fact is that this has happened. It's not a good look for Harry.
No, it's a public relations disaster. It could be a financial headache as well. It's a legal problem, Rupert. And then, of course, it's emotional and emotive, because this is a charity that Harry co-founded in memory of his late mother, Diana.
Well, that's the whole point. There's the intention of the charity was hugely honourable and was successful to begin with, but then it turned. And, and they felt, the charity, they didn't want to be doing these sort of polo events and sort of centered in America, because that was, not the sort of ethos of the charity, and wanted to make it more African based. And you actually understand that, rather than having a few sort of polo events where Harry and Meghan sort of glad hands and sort of shake a few hands and disappear again, and wanted a much more hands-on approach. So I think at the heart of it, it's going to be very hard for Senator Barley at the moment. Would you be wanting to donate? And this is going to be hard for them to rebuild their their position. And this is obviously one way they feel that they can restore honour, because they feel that they have been mistreated.
You could argue that Harry's got previous on this, Rupert, because there aren't just concerns about the governance of Sentebale, with early on in the charity's history, the person running Sentebale on a large six-figure salary with the kids, that person's children's private education being paid for by the charity, new 4x4 cars, accommodation, flights, all the rest of it. So the question mark there. Similarly, problems around the governance of African Parks, another charity to which Harry has lended his name and his support. And then there's Invictus, which is not without controversy either. So Harry doesn't appear to have the Midas touch within this philanthropic field, does he?
Not at the moment. I think that's an understatement. And yet he wants to do that. And this is the whole point, you know, because we know that maybe he thinks he's in a sense of entitlement and he can just turn up and everything in the garden will be rosy. Well, Invictus Games, that is something that he's passionate about. He's sometimes perceived as he was the one who founded it. It was founded along with the king and his brother. He's obviously taken sort of a premier role in it. So, but an Archwell Foundation, again, hasn't had always the perfect press as well. So, you know, from his charities endeavours, there does always seem to be a few problems along the way. And he needs to rebuild trust with people that actually what he's getting involved with has a sense of purpose, rather than just, as it would appear, turning up and saying giving a few speeches and moving on again. Well, look, they're obviously about to go to Australia, but that seems to have also been fraught with sort of a PR difficulty. So it's not easy for Harry to get on the front foot, but he might be saying that it might be all his own doing.
To what extent could the influence of his wife, Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, be having on this issue with Sentebale? To what extent do you detect the hand of Meghan here when it comes to this row with the charity?
I think a lot of the time you feel the hand of Meghan is over everything. It's all about her. Yet she should be leaving him to his own devices, getting on, ploughing his own furrow. Look, where's he going to be earning money? Look, they made the Netflix documentary, Spare, but everything else hasn't exactly produced a sort of commercial and financial windfall that he's been involved in. So you can feel that the hand of Meghan is hanging around in the back. And look, and she's got her own issues, trying to develop her as ever products and everything. So they're suffering at the moment from a lot of negative PR, but at times you feel it's of their own doing.
Indeed. And when it comes to this court case with Sentebale, let's not forget the background that Dr. Sophie Chandauka said she was the victim of misogynoir, which is an awful form of sexism and racism rolled into one. And she laid that claim at Harry's door. Harry was not found to be guilty of that when the Charity Commission looked into it, although it still stinks, doesn't it? You know, these allegations are serious. What do you think King Charles and Prince William make of headlines like this, that Harry's going to be sued for libel?
Now, here we go again, I think, and frustration, because it's yet more negative headlines. You know, it's bad enough with what, you know, the pair have had to dealing with the fallout from the Epstein case and everything there around Andrew. So that's bad news. And Harry does seem to be another one who's causing negativity around what the royal family are trying to do. And we're coming up to a celebration of 100 years since the birth of the late Queen. You know, they want to be telling some good stories about what the royal family have done, and particularly in terms of the King's case, his late mother, and the impact she had. And that's coming up in the next few weeks. Yeah, well, a couple of weeks when they'll be celebrating that. So from them, it's here we go again. How do we find a way of getting onto the PR front foot? Because once again, the stories are dominated by the errant two, you know, Andrew and Prince Harry.
Rupert, thank you so much. Now, Rupert, before we let you go, my spies tell me that you were on the cocktails last night because, of course, it's the Grand National today, which is one of the great horse races in the calendar. And I'm told that you were quite heavily refreshed last night. Are you going to claim this was medicinal?
Hang on. Where did this come from, Mark? You're just making this up.
I've got my spies. I understand that you attended an establishment called Gaucho or Gaucho Grill, which is, I've got to be honest with you, a premium outlet, which is bound to have stretched your budget. Has this gone through talk expenses?
Well, I don't know about that, Mark. But I'm deeply insulted that you question my preparation for the Grand National, for which I will be calling later on Talk Sport. Thank you, Mark. I'm deeply insulted. I was in there, and we had a lovely evening, and I had a lemongrass and something cocktail. My goodness me, that had a bit of va-va-voom about it.
You have, let me tell you, the immune system of an ox, and you're the best commentator in racing as well as royal stuff. Do you want to give me your tip for the winner today in the Grand National, Rupert?
I'm going to go for final orders, which I was doing late last night, and I'm also doing for Marble Sands. And the easy thing is for Marble Sands, the only grey in the race. Both of them each way selections, and I think they might.
My fellow Americans, let me begin by congratulating the team at NASA and our brave astronauts on the successful launch of Artemis 2. It was quite something. It will be traveling further than any manned rocket has ever flown and will very substantially pass the moon, go around it, and come back home from a distance that has never been done before. It's amazing.
Roger, roll pitch. Integrity, AMT high.
Due to that suit being pressurized and expanded, as well as the umbilicals being connected.
We are now falling to the moon rather than rising away from Earth. It is an amazing milestone.
We are standing by for the Integrity crew aboard Orion to surpass the Apollo 13 record.
Integrity, we're now resuming operational audio contact.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Three minutes past 8. Mark Dolan Talk Breakfast. It's fantastic to be back. Lovely to have your company, Mark Dolan, with you until 10 a.m. on the home of common sense. Happy Saturday, one and all. Your weekend starts here. And breaking this morning, U-turn number 20. Starmer stops the Chagos surrender. The islands will stay British. We will bring full reaction. Meanwhile, US Vice President J.D. Vance flies in for talks with Iran, telling them don't play games with us. So will a deal be tied up before the weekend is out? And is the world a safer place since America went into Iran? What do you think? How will history judge Donald Trump's intervention in the Middle East? And how the mighty have fallen. Prince Harry to be sued for libel in the High Court by the charity that he co-founded in memory of his mother, Diana. If he loses, he could be on the hook for millions. We'll bring you the latest on the prodigal prince's extraordinary fall from grace. And my question to you this morning is a simple one. Can the UK survive another 3 years of Sir Keir Starmer in number 10? My phone number is 03444991000. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note, and as the saying goes, let's talk. And we'll kick off with the front pages. We start with the Times newspaper, and it's good news on a Saturday morning. Rejoice! Prime Minister is forced by Donald Trump to abandon Chagos plan, and Europe faces jet fuel shortage within weeks. Daily Mirror, royal bombshell, Harry sued. Prince faces defamation battle with his former African charity. Prince Harry limps from one disaster to another. Daily Mail. We are sitting on a gold mine. North Sea oil hits record high. So why won't Red Ed Miliband drop his net zero madness and back new drilling to give Britain a boost? And how about this on the front page of the Sun newspaper? New low in shoplifting epidemic. Costa del Crime. High street coffee chain hires bouncers to guard grub. Welcome to broken Britain. So what do you think, folks? Can Britain survive another 3 years of Starmer in number 10? Let's get the views of a very old friend of mine, political commentator and broadcaster, Kane Blackwell. Good morning, Kane.
Good morning, Mark.
Great to see you in the studio, breaking your duck on Talk Breakfast for the first time.
Indeed. That's on Talk.
Well, listen, it's great to have you, and I've got to be honest with you, so much to go out this morning.
There really is.
Gone are the days when Saturday morning would be like silly season and we're going to talk about the weather. What do you make of the Prime Minister's decision to scrap the Chagos Islands giveaway?
It's a great decision, but I don't think it's his, quite frankly. This is down to the pressure of President Trump, and thank God for him for doing this, and also for many, many others in the UK and the Chagosians themselves. Obviously, they have been huge in this fight.
They want to come home.
They want to go home, but also they want to remain British. And that's the point. These islands are British. This is British territory. And this is so important geopolitically for our defence, particularly in this new Cold War with China that we are in currently.
Most definitely. Just to let George, the engineer, know that we're getting a little bit of a squeak, and it's not the timbre of Kane Blackwell's baritone voice. There might be one or two technical issues. We're going to iron those out. Kane, it's strange, isn't it, that the President of the United States, a foreign country, appears more concerned about the British national interest than our own PM. This is the same Donald Trump who said, why aren't you drilling for oil and gas on your own shores? The same President Trump that says, why have you got open borders, which is an economic, humanitarian and societal disaster? So, you know, when Starmer talks about national interest, I think that it's completely empty words, isn't it?
Of course it is. The man is a globalist. He doesn't believe in national interest. He believes in global interest. And that's the problem. We have human rights lawyers running this country who do not care about the British interest, and we really need to change that, because if we don't, we will have serious problems, even further than what we already do.
Most definitely. Well, look, while we iron out these issues, let's take a voice note, and this is from, can we go Ian first, please, George, when you're ready? Ian has left a message regarding Sir Keir Starmer. Can Britain survive another 3 years of Starmer in number 10?
Morning, Mark, Ian from Hemel Hempstead. I think we've just got to suck it up with Starmer for the next 3 years. The alternatives are too scary. Rayner, who will advocate for more workers' rights, they'll end up doing a one-day week and 4 hours at that. Reeves, who will destroy business. The others are just fools. And the thing is, whoever takes over will try and outdo the Greens to try and get the Muslim bloc vote back. So they'll be lefter than left. In fact, the left will be trying to out-left the other left, the Greens. So scary.
Scary is the word. Thank you for that, Ian. And here's a voice note from Rob, who thinks that King Charles may have a say in regard to Sir Keir Starmer's position as Prime Minister.
Morning, Mark. Rob here, truck driver. I'd just like to ask a very simple question for you guys, probably, but people often talk on talk about we don't have the ability of removing Keir Starmer and or the Labour Party from power. Am I right in thinking that the monarchy or the monarchy who's reigning at the moment does have the power to remove our current Prime Minister and party? Obviously, well, you'd like to think King Charles can see what's happening to the country. Am I right in thinking that King Charles can remove Labour? And if so, do you think President Trump will bend his ear a little bit when King Charles visits later this month? Thanks, Mark. Great show. Keep up the good work.
Rob, thank you for your voice note. Rob there, who is driving his truck, and he's a member of Alarm Clock Britain that gets up in the morning, puts a shift in. Rob, thank you for your considered thoughts on that issue. I guess it's wishful thinking, isn't it, Kane Blackwell, that the King can dissolve Parliament, we get an election that the country needs and craves. Sadly, it ain't going to happen, is it?
Well, it isn't going to happen, and I'm always in two minds because I don't think it should. I don't think the King should. We fought a civil war over the right for Parliament and the people to decide who's in power. And quite frankly, last election, people chose this government, whether they like it or not, whether they went out to vote or they didn't. By not voting, they chose this government, or for voting for protest parties or other parties or whatever it was at the time, people chose the wrong decision. And now we have to live with the consequences, and that's the problem. But what I think we need to do going forward is ensure that the right is united behind one force. I'm now a member of Reform because I believe that that is the force that can actually save Britain and change the country. But what we need to do is stop the squabbling on either side of the right and actually get together and sort this country out.
Well, I think it's very interesting what you've said, and that's actually a big part of what you're doing at the moment, because tell me about this massive project that you're about to launch.
Yes, so I am a member of the CPAC GB Advisory Board and Organising Committee. We are creating CPAC GB, which is going to be the first time it's come to Britain, which is going to be an absolute showstopper. I went to CPAC recently in Texas.
For those that don't know, tell us about the US incarnation of CPAC. Yeah. What is it?
So CPAC is a movement. It's a group and it's a conference that was set up by Ronald Reagan actually back in the 1970s, and it's been running ever since. And this really brings together the entire conservative movement in America. It's been expanded and exported to places like Japan, South Korea, Hungary, and now we're bringing it for the first time to the UK.
It's amazing that we haven't had it in the UK.
It is, it's incredible. And this is the problem with the British right, is it's never had a movement behind it. It's always been these individual different parties. And what we really need to do is the right and for the grassroots to come together, because we've had conferences, dotted here around. But what the problem is a lot of those conferences are all for intellectuals. And what this is for is the people, the grassroots, the real movement.
Well, it's very interesting, isn't it? And you're expecting some very big names at this event.
Yeah, we are sending out invites currently, and we hope to have some really interesting
and
brilliant speakers.
Farage on board and you want Kemi on board. You want them in the same building under the same roof.
We want Conservatives, patriotic Conservatives, to come together and to show the people that this is what we believe in, and to debate the issues of the day. That's what we want.
What would you say to some of my audience who consider Reform to be Britain's only hope, fearful of the idea of the Tories being on board, given the damage they did to the country over 14 years?
Sure. Well, look, I personally, I'm not speaking for CPAC now, but personally, I want to see a Reform government because I saw the Conservatives in government. I was working in Parliament at the time, and I've seen the dither and the delay, and quite frankly, the sort of hindsight of it all, of we should have done this or we could do this and we'll do this next time. And I just don't buy it. And I think the country doesn't.
You're a recovering Tory, aren't you?
I'm not a recovering Tory. I'm just a small C Conservative who realised that the Conservative Party left them.
You left the party.
Well, I think the party left me, and I think the party left a lot of other people. And that's how I think a lot of your viewers and listeners will feel as well. And that's the problem with the Conservative Party. It still can't quite understand that. But what I want to go back just to CPAC, put my personal views aside, this is about the battle of ideas. This is about the right coming together and saying, look, these are fundamental issues that we want to save Britain and we want to save the Western world. We might disagree about how we might go about it, but this is the fundamental, and we have to realise that there is a greater, darker and more evil force out there that is trying to undermine and destroy the fabric of our society.
But if the right unite, does not that dilute the potency of the reform offer?
Look, I'm not saying that there needs to be a merger of parties at all. I'm not saying that whatsoever. But what I'm saying is that...
Are you saying that reform can't win on their own?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I think
then why do we need CPAC?
Because CPAC is about a movement. It's about uniting a movement of the right as a whole. This isn't about one party or anything like that. CPAC is about the movement. The left have been very good at this for many, many years, and we have to catch up, quite frankly. They've been doing this for 50-odd years. So we need to catch up and realise that the right in Britain can be a plethora of different parties, but it needs to be one united movement around some common goals that is about saving Britain and saving the Western world.
And it is a bit silly, given that this Labour government are in power and that they may seek to conspire with the Greens, the SNP and the Lib Dems to win the next election. It's odd and silly, therefore, that the Tories and Reform are always at each other's throats, probably not very helpful to the cause.
Well, look, at the end of the day, this is politics, and politics is about the battle of ideas. And if you win the battle of ideas, then good for you. So like I say, personally, I am a Reform supporter. I want Nigel Farage to be the next Prime Minister because I think he has worked at it. He understands the problems. He's been consistent on it for many, many years. But this is, like I say, CPAC is about the wider movement.
Bigger picture,
it's about
longer
the bigger
term.
picture. It's about the longer term. We're, talking about 2029, I want Nigel Farage and Reform to win. But talking about the future, we have to realise that this is bigger than all of us. And if we do not realise that there are some big fundamental issues that are facing us and our civilization, then we will not win.
If the alternative was a left-wing rainbow coalition, just speaking personally, not for CPAC, would you take a Tory Reform coalition in government?
I don't think that that is going to happen. I think Reform will win the next election.
You think they'll have the numbers?
I think they will. I think the people are with them.
And what happens
if
Starmer conspires with Sir Ed Davey and Captain Cleavage, Zach Polanski?
Well, then we have to be ready, and then this is when people need to decide what is more important to them. Voting for parties that are not going to win, or voting for a party that can actually win and take it to Labour, the Greens and the Lib Dems at the next election. I fundamentally believe that that is Reform UK now, and Nigel Farage is the person to do that.
CPAC, when's it happening?
So it's going to be the 16th to the 18th of July. It's going to be in Greenwich at the Intercontinental Hotel, just next to the O2s. Tickets are on sale now, and we do have an early bird offer of £75 for general admission. But there are lots of different tickets. We're going to have a big gala dinner as well, so you can add that onto your ticket. You can stay at the hotel as well. It's going to be a great event. It's going to be a fantastic event, really exciting. And I really hope that people do actually come along, because I think for far too long, the grassroots, the working man, the person who, the silent majority, quite frankly, have been too silent for far too long, and now it's time for to get their voices out there.
More power to you. I'm delighted to say that Kane Blackwell is joining us in the studio, one of the lead coordinators of CPAC UK, which is going to be a massive event in July of this year. But folks, let's talk about the Prime Minister. We've had the Chagos Islands U-turn. It's very welcome. But can Starmer cling on, and can Britain survive another 3 years of Sir Keir in number 10? It's 8:18. This is Talk Breakfast.
Good morning to you. This is Tour the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Just breaking news in the last couple of moments. Extraordinary news. Not just that the police have arrived at the Sandringham estate where Prince Andrew, as was now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, is currently living since being thrown out of the Windsor estate. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's an extraordinary revelation. And certainly what's been contained in the Epstein files as released in the last few weeks. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast, 8:21. Mick says, good morning, Mark. Lawyers must never be elected into our parliament again. Blair, Starmer, Hermer, Lammy, Thornbury, Greaves, Reynolds have all damaged our country immensely. Mick, I tend to agree. I'd be putting entrepreneurs in there because all roads lead to the economy. That is the basis of a successful society. Just my opinion. Gurdeep has messaged the show. Good morning, Gurdeep. He says, good morning, Mark. When deals go wrong for Starmer, why does he frame it as though he's decided they're no longer a good idea and is choosing to walk away, rather than admitting that Trump isn't backing the deal, that mistakes were made, or that the decision on the Chagos deal may have been pushed through unilaterally instead of being properly debated beforehand? Kane Blackwell, political commentator and broadcaster, and one of the faces of CPAC UK. How damaging do you think this Chagos U-turn is going to be for Starmer?
Well, I think it's highly embarrassing, and I think it will be very damaging for him. But I think if you're a Labour MP, are you really going to want to get rid of him? I just think it causes too much problems, and they've seen what happened with the Conservative Party. Yeah. So I don't know. I do think it could cause issues for him, but I think he's slippery Starmer.
And do you think that the President, Donald Trump, is going to make life difficult for Starmer when the King visits later this month? Because he may well reference the Prime Minister when speaking publicly alongside the King.
Well, the genius of Donald Trump is his unpredictability. So you don't know what is going to be said. You don't know if he's going to, say these sorts of things in front of the King. I wouldn't be surprised. But I do think that the President also respects the King a lot and wouldn't want to embarrass him.
Is Donald Trump a problematic figure for the right?
I don't think so. I think some people feel that he's a problematic
Not all
figure.
small C Conservatives like him, do they?
I agree that not a lot of people, some people don't. But I do think he has changed the way politics is done. And I think for the better. I think for a long time we had politicians telling us what they thought we wanted to hear rather than what they thought and what they believed. I think Donald Trump sort of cuts through the BS and actually gets to the heart of the matter a lot of the time.
Is he a true Conservative?
I think it depends on what you mean. I think there's been a lot of I think the thing is, conservatism has changed, and I think we now have a new brand of patriotic conservatism that actually focuses more on national identity. For far too long, it's been this sort of globalist, sort of Labour-light conservatism that we've seen actually across the entire Western world. And that's why a lot of the Western world is in such dire straits, because the Conservative parties in all of our respective countries actually haven't been conservative.
Damning words, but very, very powerful. Well, we've got more news this morning. It doesn't stop. The Artemis 2 mission has now successfully concluded, with its crew returning to Earth after roughly 10 days around the moon. The Orion spacecraft re-entered the Earth's atmosphere at speeds of 25,000 miles per hour, enduring temperatures near 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, whilst protected by its heat shield. So essentially, we've sent folk to the moon and back for the second time in our history. Why is it significant? Why does it matter? Well, I'm not that fussed about it, to be honest with you. I'm more worried about inflation, illegal immigration, unemployment. But a man that thinks it is important is one of the TV directors here at talkTV, and it's the brilliant Davis. Hello, Davis.
Hello, Mark.
Finally, we put a face and a voice to the name, because you're an icon on Talk Breakfast. You're the guy that makes me look great every morning.
You look great all the time.
Oh, well, no, you found my best angle. You're very kind with the lighting. But not only are you a leading TV director, but you're also really big in the world of tech. You're passionate about tech, aren't you? Why do these trips into space matter for my viewers and listeners?
I have to be a little bit honest here. I am a little bit aghast about how you are just not fascinated by this journey in the same way that so many other people are. I think for me, though, it's the fact that this is the pinnacle of human achievement. We can go back in time and look at everything that humanity has achieved. And I would say going to the moon is probably peak of that. And the last time we were at the moon, 1972, that was such a long time ago. I've been so fascinated by space my entire life. And I never actually thought that I would finally see humans return to a body that's not Earth. It really is kind of amazing. The fact that we had humans over 300,000 kilometers away from Earth versus 400 kilometers roughly of the ISS. That's simply astonishing. And I think that just to strive to reach new distant lands, it's just what humanity was built to do.
Now, I will grant you that it is a great achievement. I think the astronauts were brave, and the scientists that got them there are ingenious. So it is a great achievement, but how does it help the human race to send people to the moon?
I would say resources. The moon is full of resources that are yet untapped.
Drill, baby, drill.
And the thing is, it's not just us. It's
Maybe
not just...
Ed Miliband, do you think he'll put like solar panels on there or something?
I think it could be a great place for solar panels.
Put windows on the moon is my next project.
More interesting than that, though, is that there is helium-3 on the moon, which can be used in the future in nuclear fusion, which could be massive. In addition to that, there is ice on the south pole of the moon. And that is what both America and China are rushing to get. China's sending a probe later this year.
Why do they want to get ice?
Well, this ice could be used to fuel future missions deeper into space. So instead of hauling all of the rocket fuel from Earth, which is super expensive, we can mine it from the moon instead, and then use that as a base to travel further. And like, could you imagine if China were to get to the moon before the US? That would be so embarrassing. Imagine if China were to make a moon base, and the Western world had no answer to it. How would you feel?
Also, am I right in thinking the space oh my goodness gracious, space exploration has led to a lot of inventions that we all use, including Gore-Tex materials, waterproof clothing, radio communications, that kind of thing?
That's very true. There's thousands and thousands of satellites orbiting Earth, not quite as far away as 300,000 kilometers, but they are still in space. Could you imagine a world without GPS? I get lost all the time. One of my greatest fears growing up as a kid was that I'd get lost because I didn't know how to read a street directory very well. Well, we've got GPS now, and that's thanks to space exploration all those decades ago. So I'd say it is very beneficial for the human race, and it's just, it's the human race loves to dream, and this is the pinnacle of everything that we've done.
Oh my goodness, I think it's a round of applause. I mean, Davis, he's put it very well, hasn't he? And I know that my viewers and listeners are concerned about, frankly, getting a bus to work is a challenge, let alone getting a man on the moon.
Yeah.
But actually, if you look at NASA, if you look at SpaceX, which is Elon Musk's company, what's the Bezos one?
Blue Origin.
Blue Origin from Jeff Bezos. We are in something of a golden era of space exploration.
We are, and I think it's a good thing. I have no problem with it at all. I think I agree with Davis. It is the pinnacle of sort of human sort of exploration and all of that sort of stuff. And it is natural for us to explore. As humans, it's in our sort of primal instincts to do so. But I do think this could be a very interesting time. And I think going back to sort of the geopolitical space race of this all, it is important that the West and America get there before China, because if China are able to use those minerals and find whatever else is there, I think that is a huge problem for us.
Most definitely. I think some people might struggle with the billions being spent on it, though, whilst there are people sleeping rough on the streets. Is that a counter-argument?
I don't think it is, because there is lots of other stuff that you can cut before you start cutting things like exploration of space. I think there's far much more. We can reduce the civil service, we can get rid of Quango before we start doing that sort of stuff.
David, I'm going to upgrade you because you are the director of our television output here on talkTV, and you do a great job, and I look amazing.
Yes, you do.
I look so good. And it's thanks to you, because in real life, I'm very ugly.
Not sure about that.
In real life, the face is regrettable. But with your angle... So that aside, I'm going to upgrade you, not just to the director of our TV output, but you are now Talk's space correspondent.
Oh.
All right, I'll put a badge on. I'll have a nice patch.
Space Force.
Because I've got to say, you've spoken up very well for the space race, and it's been brilliant to have you in the studio. And now you can get back to softening the light slightly, if you don't mind. It's a tiny bit harsh. I look a bit shiny. Kane, what's next for the Prime Minister? Does he survive to fight the next election?
I think he does, but I think it's close. I think it's a close call.
Why do you think he survives? How does he hang on?
Because I just can't see the thing. Like I said before, Labour MPs do not want to jeopardise their jobs. Voting for another leader is going to jeopardise their jobs, because it means that an election becomes more and more likely. However, I do think there is a real risk to him, particularly from people like Angela Rayner and Ed Miliband and some unholy coalition of people in that way.
Yeah.
But I do think that if he doesn't play his cards right, he could, and if he does keep going down this sort of destructive path. However, at the same time, I do think that he gets away with a lot of stuff. He's sort of a bit like Teflon, so it doesn't stick to him in the eyes of the left or in the eyes of the Labour Party.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, we as Conservatives or people who don't agree with the Labour Party and their socialist policies, of course we're going to think, of course they're going to get rid of him. But if you are a Labour MP, are you really going to do that? Because I don't know if you want to jeopardise your job or not.
Turkeys don't vape for Christmas.
Well, indeed, they don't.
You left the Tory party and you've worked with some of the biggest names within the Conservative Party. It was a big move for you to cross the floor, metaphorically, and to support Reform UK. Do you have any worries about the Reform UK project? Is it a one-man band? Have they done their homework? Did their numbers add up? Is it a personality cult?
No, not at all. I think Nigel Farage is a brilliant driving force, and that is so important.
Is he a cult?
No, I don't think he's a cult. I think he's a hero to a lot of people, and he is to me. Nigel Farage inspired me to get into politics when I was 14 years old, because I wanted to leave the European Union. So I joined UKIP because I thought, this man actually is saying what I believe, and millions of other people felt the exact same way. So I think for a very long time, Nigel Farage has been consistent, and he has a huge following with people, and that is why there is a huge sort of movement around him. But it's not a one-man band. We've seen people like Suella Braverman join the party, my old boss Andrew Rosendale joined the party. Yeah. So, there's lots of other people who are coming in, but also people from the Labour Party, from even the Green Party and the Lib Dems have joined Reform, because people are patriots, and they know that Reform UK is a patriotic party and wants to put the United Kingdom first. And I think for a very long time, people have felt very politically homeless, and now they have a home in Reform UK.
What are your worries? I know you're very supportive of Farage and the Reform Project. You're a loyal guy, but where is there room for improvement?
What I would say is I would love to see us be a lot more sort of firm and come out with a lot more information on what the next government will do in terms of actually getting rid of the civil servants. I believe that is all being worked on at the moment, but I want to hear that.
You want detail?
I want detail, but I also want as well a commitment that we are going to reverse the Blairite legacy of laws that the Conservative Party failed to do anything about, because that is what is so important. That is the reason why this country is failing. If you do not reverse the legislation that Tony Blair put in place, like the Constitutional Reform Act and the Human Rights Act that have baked all of this stuff into British law, you are not going to change anything. And if you don't change the civil servants who are implementing this stuff, nothing will change. So you have to do that. We need people from business, we need people from all different walks of life, broadcasting, wherever it might be, to actually join in this fight, not just to be MPs, but also to serve in government as civil servants. That's what I want to see.
Kane, you are assembling CPAC UK, a massive small C Conservative conference, 16th to the 18th of July. How can people find out more?
So they can go to our website, type in CPAC GB. It's going to be a fantastic event. We're going to have lots of amazing speakers, panels. It's going to be fun. It's going to be lively. We want it to be a rally. We want it to be uniting for a lot of people, but we don't want it to be sort of intellectual and boring, and people are feeling a bit like, oh God, when is this going to end? People feel...
Is there a worry it will be ignored by establishment mainstream Conservatives and just be populated by swivel-eyed loons and crackpots?
No, not at all. I think this is about mainstream conservatism. I mean that in small c conservatism. This is about uniting people. But what I would say is, in America and in many different countries, in Australia, the next CPAC, all three Conservative parties, Liberals, One Nation and Nationals, are all going to be there. All the leaders will be there. So we want to see the exact same thing in terms of our leaders actually getting on stage, talking to our people, talking to the right, talking to their voters, and explaining what they want to do for our country.
Kane, what a thrill to have you in the studio. Will you come back and see us again soon?
Of course. Have me anytime.
Very compelling voice on the right. Kane Blackwell, political commentator, broadcaster.
Thank you, Mark.
Senior producer of the Liz Truss Show, which is doing great numbers on YouTube.
Thank you.
And he's assembling CPAC GB. Check it out online. And my thanks to Davis Fang, who is now the director of our TV output, and he's also our space correspondent. Folks, can Britain survive 3 more years of Keir Starmer in number 10? This is Talk Breakfast.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. Dolan's Dispatch, my reaction to the breaking news that Sir Keir Starmer has ditched his plans to give away the Chagos Islands. A special Dolan's Dispatch coming in just 20 minutes' time. Meanwhile, the US Vice President J.D. Vance flies in for talks with Iran, telling the Iranians, don't play games with us. So will a deal be tied up in the days ahead? Who better to ask than one of the most published historians in the country, broadcaster and author Martin Whittock. Good morning, Martin.
Good morning to you.
What do you make of the mood music surrounding these talks this weekend?
Well, it's going to be very difficult. Iran wants Lebanon included in the ceasefire and insists that it always was. US say no. Until that is done, assuming that is done, they say they're not going to abide by the ceasefire. They want lifting of sanctions. That means billions and billions of dollars, basically, to be allowed to flow into the Iranian economy again. These are big sticking points. On the other hand, US wants an end to uranium enrichment and a complete end to the nuclear program. And we do need to remember that, complicated as it was, uranium enrichment has leapt since Trump abandoned the containment deal of Obama. So things have actually escalated in that area. The Strait of Hormuz is now a major problem. Iran is determined to hold it now. It has become a real bargaining chip. So in many ways, the war has actually added to the problems which it was meant to solve. And it's difficult at the moment to see quite how these areas can be bridged. So the current crisis has clearly been partly averted, but it's far from over. It's going to be really, really difficult. Talk about the detail being where a deal, basically succeeds or fails, because at the moment they are farther apart than ever. And of course, the Iranians will also say, what everyone says about the Iranian regime, terrible, terrible, terrible regime.
Sure.
They will say, the last time we were negotiating, you attacked us. So what actually is the value of negotiation? So in some ways, the Americans have also kind of given them that card to play as well. So we are in a very, very tense and difficult situation. It may be possible they can pull it off, but at the moment, this is quite a circle to square.
Martin, how viable is the Iranian regime in the absence of a nuclear capability?
That's a very, very good question. And I think they have decided that they are not viable without that now. And I think in many ways, the attacks of last year, which was said to have obliterated it, but obviously haven't ended it, this war, which clearly has not brought down the regime, will only have underscored that amongst hardliners in the regime, many of whom have a pretty apocalyptic ideology as well, who would have said, well, actually, without a nuclear weapon, how are we to stop this happening again? So in many ways, this has actually escalated a very, very dangerous situation with a regime that is still entrenched and will see nuclear weapons as the only way it can guarantee its ultimate safety. Whereas we all know Iran must not become a nuclear power, but you can see how that's added to the complexity of the situation.
Efforts to contain Iran and its threat to global order have been a talking shop for decades, haven't they, Martin? Does the president deserve any credit for action rather than words?
I think it was necessary to take decisive action. However, I do not think the Trump action is the right way forward because of the reasons that I've just said. And I think this is the problem in many ways, is that people are saying, well, surely the situation before was majorly problematic, and it clearly was. Clearly something needed to be done. The challenge is this the right something? And at the moment, I think there are very, very real questions about whether this is the right something, because the Iranian regime is still there. It's emboldened. It's got a stronger control of the Strait of Hormuz than ever. And in many ways, it's more entrenched behind its nuclear program, whereas it was beginning to engage with containment, albeit I know all the problems that are involved with that. But Trump now has a really problematic situation. What does he do if the Iranians say, we demand the Strait of Hormuz? What will he do if they say, no, we're not going to give up uranium enrichment? How's he going to make that happen? Because with all the power of the Pentagon, they're still there. And the Americans are not going to put boots on the ground. So rock and hard place are about to meet in Pakistan.
Martin, how might you have done things differently if we could rewind to January of this year?
Gosh, that's really a demand, isn't it? And you're absolutely right, because people that say this is a bad situation do in fact have some pressure on them in order to say, well, what would you have done differently? I think that what was necessary was a much more ramping up of the containment program. I think a continuation of the sanctions, a ramping up of the containment program and international inspection to ensure that uranium enrichment really had ended. Now, I know critics of that will say, yeah, but you've still left the regime in place. And I recognise that. But I also recognise, and that's a weakness, obviously, in what I've just said, but I also recognise this attempt to bring it down has spectacularly failed as well. So clearly there must be some third way, and the jury is out, of course, at the moment on what that third way will be. But this way clearly has not yet succeeded. Degraded, broken, but still there. And that's the real challenge.
Iran has probably been set back, what would you say, 10, 15 years militarily. Is that not a worthy prize?
I think the weakening of the Iranian regime, and obviously I always say the Iranian regime because we're not talking about the Iranian people here, many of whom are desperate to see this regime go. The weakening of the Iranian regime must indeed be something that is positive. And yet the threats to Gulf security have increased. And already people are saying that in future, some Gulf states are already beginning to think about that China may be a more predictable ally and perhaps a more reliable protector. Now, I would have real concerns about that. But I think one of the dangers of this is that there could be the unintended consequences of erstwhile, hitherto American allies saying, look at the mess we've got into. It's not been dealt with. Would the Chinese have dealt it differently? And that could be another something, let's try something different. Well, be careful what you wish for, because that could produce massive problems of its own. And the Straits of Hormuz are now regarded by the Iranians as an Iranian waterway. That is unacceptable to the international community. We have challenging times ahead.
Have we had moments like this in our history, the sort of decisive action we've seen from Donald Trump? Are there parallels from the past of what the Orange One has done in the Middle East?
Well, there clearly are parallels in the sense of what do you do with a regime that is actually threatening peace? Obviously, the challenge was how to deal with the Hitlerite regime in the 1930s. And clearly there was weakness there, but in the end there was decisive action as well. But in the company of allies, of course, and that's where the Churchillian parallel always falls down, because Churchill was an alliance builder and alliance maintainer. Then, of course, you have the situation before the First World War. Now, I don't think we're about to enter a Third World War. But then again, you have a situation of how do you diffuse, and to what extent can precipitous action actually take you down an even more dangerous path? Now, I do not think we're on the brink of a Third World War. The problem with history is it's better for giving us warnings than it is for giving us lessons.
What do you think about J.D. Vance? Is he the man to strike some kind of deal with the Iranians, Martin?
Well, if any man's going to do it, I think it probably will be Vance, because Vance is very much an opponent of the so-called forever wars. It's quite clear that whatever he said publicly, he didn't want them to be here in the first place. He must have also had some other third way forward, or maybe it was just let it carry on as it was. We can't be quite sure with him. I think there's a possibility that he could achieve this because he wants them out of the war. And I think Trump is probably beginning to lose interest. So I think, yes, Vance probably is the man to go because to the negotiations, because he is the one that wants them out of this. On the other hand, he will also be the perfect fall guy, of course, if they fail. Always send somebody else and then blame them if it fails. Obviously, Trump was not going to go there. But the point is, he could be the fall guy as well as the person that achieves it. Interesting days. He too must be pondering over his coffee at the moment as to exactly what sort of day lies ahead of him.
One of the positives of this war in Iran has been the extent to which we've been able to draw on the capacious knowledge, wit, intelligence and charm of Martin Whittock. Martin, we'll catch up soon. Thank you so much for your valuable time. The most published historian in the country, I believe, author and broadcaster Martin Whittock, who suggests that the war in Iran was a mistake and he's hopeful of a deal, but he believes there will be consequences. Your reaction, and what about this conversation? Can Britain survive another 3 3 years of Starmer in number 10. 8:48, don't forget Dolan's dispatch on the way. This is Talk Breakfast.
We genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from number 10. And Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned. The plot is thickening. The noose is tightening.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. Let's take a look now at the impact on the construction industry of this government's tax policies. I'm delighted to welcome Steve Mulholland, who is the CEO of Construction Plant Hire Association. Hello, Steve.
Good morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for joining us. I've got a lot of people that work in construction who watch the show and listen to the show. This is a critical industry and a very, very big part of our economy.
It is indeed, Mark, yes. So the construction sector employs 10% of the UK's workforce, and 99% of the guys that are employed through the industry are SMEs, small, medium-sized enterprises. So these are the boys and girls that do the actual hands-on work day to day. Companies typically range from 5 or 10 through to 100 employees, and the government in the autumn budget of 2024 decided to remove business property relief. Now, these companies, Mark, are traditionally family owned. They pass it on from one generation to the next. They're the biggest employer in the country, and they're now going to be liable for a 20% tax when they pass on to the next generation. Now, this is a tax which foreign companies, private equity companies, and PLC operations do not have to pay. So not only is it unfair, it's potentially unlawful, but it destroys the very fabric of which communities throughout the country have been able to tap into, to grow on and thrive successfully.
And this hasn't had, Steve, the publicity it deserves. This sounds like the farmers all over again, and this time in another critical sector, which is construction.
It is exactly the same as the farmers in terms of the idea that government has for taxing working people. These are not the super wealthy people. These are not people that are sitting with millions of pounds in the bank. Their assets are tied up. The cash is tied up in their assets. They would need a cash crystallisation moment. They would need to sell assets. They would need to let people go to then be able to pay these draconian tax bills. And of course, to do that, The latest survey of our members is finding out that 62% of the guys in construction plant, now that's all the machinery that you see round about the country, it's also the most capital intensive part of sector in the UK without exception. 13% more than any of the trendy renewables, advanced manufacturing things that people like to talk about, but without them, your infrastructure and your homes don't get built. Just like the farmers, we don't eat. If they don't work, we don't eat. It makes no sense. It's been terribly thought out, and it's beginning to play out. We reckon 14 billion it's going to cost the economy. That's in monetary terms, but in real life terms, from mental health to the things that we take for granted, water, Wi-Fi, things like that, infrastructure is involved in all of that, and the guys that deliver it are being absolutely hammered, and these new rules kick in from the 6th of April this year.
And this is on top of inflation and other measures we've seen in the budget that has hurt the construction industry. This sounds like a perfect storm, Steve. You've got human tragedy here with people losing their jobs and folk having to shutter their businesses.
You have, Mark, and as an industry, we actually don't know how many people are not only losing their jobs, but losing their health, their mental health, and their lives in many cases, because these are small operations where people have put their heart and soul. It is actually their life. It's not a job.
Unfortunately, a lot of tradesmen do take their own lives and have major health issues, substance abuse, because of the stress of the job, Steve, and the conditions in which they're working.
Unfortunately, that would seem to be the case, Mark. I've got myself involved personally and CPA as an organisation in trying to help with this, because construction can also be a great enabler for not only positive mental health, because we do work in fairly tight-knit groups in our industry, spend a lot of time with each other. It can become a real positive part of your life. And in the same way, Mark, that if we get it right and reverse these draconian taxes, it can be an enormous enabler for growth. For every £100 billion that's spent in construction, the economy gets 315 billion back. That's back without having to add to the national debt. Now, you have to attract investment for that, and poor government policy means that investors are reluctant to invest in UK PLC. So we need a consistency, and we need to loosen these tax rules so that we can allow these guys just to get on with their job and employing people. Right now, we're looking at 33% of 2,000 members that we represent cutting back on staff, 62% cutting back on capital investment. That is not growth. It's quite the opposite, Mark. 17% of the insolvencies in the UK in the last 12 months have been in construction. So we need as much help as we can. But when I say help, we're not looking for handouts.
No. You just don't want to be punished and clobbered and put out of business.
Absolutely. As I say, we can be that enabler for growth.
Yeah.
And there are great plans in the future through infrastructure plans, through housing plans. But if people aren't working and people are losing their jobs, they're not going to be able to afford to buy any of this and buy into any of this good stuff.
No, and these are skilled tradesmen and women, and it's also affecting young people getting a job in construction because costs are so tight. Steve, briefly, how can people find out more about your campaign to axe this 20% tax?
If they can log on to our website at cpa.uk.net, you will find information there on various stakeholders. We've also worked in tandem with Family Business UK. FB UK have done some fantastic work actually highlighting where the regions in the country are going to be most affected by this. Now, this work was done in April last year. This is not hindsight talking, and it's playing out very, very close to how we predicted it as an industry. And unfortunately, the government's still not listening.
Can you, actually I've got the details here, cpa.uk.net. There it is, cpa.uk.net. Lend your support to this important cause, and we're going to get behind it here on Talk. Steve, thank you for joining us, and we'll catch up again soon. Have a good Saturday. Steve Mulholland is the CEO of the Construction Plant Hire Association. That is the website, cpa.uk.net. The Iran war, is a peace deal coming? Cindy is in Michigan in the United States. Hi, Cindy.
Hi, Mark. You know, I wake up at 1 a.m. I set my alarm just for your show. I love your show.
I'm so honoured. It's great to have you listening, and it's beautiful because you're in America, but you care about Britain, which is a very special thing. We're very lucky.
Very much. Very much.
Cindy, we've only got a few seconds. It's my bad for poor time management. What do you think of this deal in Iran? Is it going to happen?
I'm not holding my breath. I don't trust Iran regime. We need to take out the IRGC and the Houthis.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, not the Houthis, the mullahs.
The mullahs.
Sorry,
do you
mullahs.
think it's going to happen? Do you think Donald is going to win this war comprehensively, Cindy?
Yes. Yes, I do. Yes, I do, 100%.
And that's because the political will is there, right?
Yes, and he's smart. He knows what he's doing. He's experienced. He's got what it takes.
Cindy, you've got what it takes.
Faith.
Let us speak at greater length next time. Thank you for your call and your kind words about the show. Get back to bed, Cindy. It's past your bedtime. You are listening to Talk Breakfast. Dolan's Dispatch is next. You're going to love it. This is Talk Breakfast.
My fellow Americans, let me begin by congratulating the team at NASA and our brave astronauts on the successful launch of Artemis 2. It was quite something. It will be traveling further than any manned rocket has ever flown and will very substantially pass the moon, go around it, and come back home from a distance that has never been done before. It's amazing.
Roger, roll pitch. Integrity, AMT high.
Due to that suit being pressurized and expanded, as well as the umbilicals being connected.
We are now falling to the moon rather than rising away from Earth. It is an amazing milestone.
We are standing by for the Integrity crew aboard Orion to surpass the Apollo 13 record.
Integrity, we're now resuming operational audio contact.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Past 9, happy Saturday one and all. Talk Breakfast. Mark Dolan with you for a marathon session on Talk. I want to thank my bosses because I'll be on air for the next 2 weeks, Saturday and Sunday, and throughout next week and the following week, looking after Ian Collins' show from 1 till 4. You can't have too much of a good thing. Well, a very busy show this morning. U-turn number 20. Starmer stops the Chagos surrender. The islands will stay British. We will bring full reaction. Meanwhile, US Vice President J.D. Vance flies in for talks with Iran, telling them don't play games with us. So will a deal be tied up before the weekend is out? And is the world a safer place since America went into Iran? What do you think? How will history judge Donald Trump's intervention in the Middle East? And how the mighty have fallen. Prince Andrew to be sued for libel in the High Court by the charity that he co-founded. The charity he co-founded in memory of his late mother, Diana. That's Prince Harry in the dock. If Harry loses, he could be on the hook for millions. We'll bring you the latest on the prodigal prince's extraordinary fall from grace. Now, my phone number is 03444991000. A simple question today. Can Britain survive another 3 years of Sir Keir Starmer in number 10? You can text the word talk in your message to 87222. You can also leave us a voice note, as the saying goes. Let's talk. Now, you can hear us on the radio, DAB+, in-app and online. You can also watch the show. Head to YouTube, search Talking Up, we pop. So let's get to work. And as always, at this time, every Friday, Saturday and Sunday, it is Dolan's Dispatch. By my estimation, it is U-turn number 20. Sir Keir Starmer has ditched his plan to give away the Chagos Islands. Finally, some good news. The Chagos Islands giveaway is dead. It is no more. It has expired. It is pushing up the daisies. Rejoice. We will be spared the absurd cost of £35 billion for the privilege of needlessly relinquishing British land. We will hang on to an economically and militarily strategic territory that was targeted by Iran just 3 weeks ago. We won't be handing this territory to Mauritius, a country that has no historic claim on the islands, has never owned them and isn't even near them. We will not be gifting Mauritius the money and the land. Mauritius, an economic ally of China, who, the last time I checked, are our geopolitical enemy. It is fantastic news. The U-turn is the right thing to do. And of course, as with all of Starmer's actions as Prime Minister, it's got nothing to do with him. Nothing at all. And it's got nothing to do with the national interest. He's been bounced into this. He has had his hand forced. In fact, we have the bad orange man himself, Donald Trump, to thank for this U-turn, with the US president having effectively vetoed the deal. How ironic that it's the leader of a foreign country, the president of the United States, who seems more focused on the British national interest than our own Prime Minister. But it's a U-turn, and I welcome it, which is why I would also welcome a U-turn on the national insurance tax rate hike, which is causing businesses to fold. I would like a U-turn on the minimum wage hike, which has brought about the highest youth unemployment in Europe, which is going some, given that no one in Spain works. I'd like a U-turn on the farmers' inheritance tax, given that Labour's recent changes don't go far enough. I'd like Labour to scrap what we've just heard about a few minutes ago, which is a 20% tax on construction businesses handing their company over to the next generation. What a scandal. We're going to publicise that here on Talk Breakfast. It's time to back our farmers and to back our builders. I'd like a U-turn on illegal immigration and the restoration of a Rwanda-style plan in order to stop the boats, which is a humanitarian, national security and economic disaster. I'd like a U-turn on the ridiculous workers' rights package, which is reawakening the old enemy of unemployment and making life a misery for employers. I'd like a U-turn on a taxation policy which has placed the highest burden on British workers since the Second World War and which is causing wealth creators to flee the country. I'd like a U-turn on the war on alarm clock Britain and people that take risks and start businesses. I'd like a U-turn on net zero, which is an act of national economic and industrial suicide. I'd like a U-turn on the abuse of pensioners as they shiver in their homes every winter. A U-turn on the mindless tax rate of private schools. A tax on education. Make it make sense. I'd like a U-turn on the manifesto that was pack of lies. ID cards wasn't in a manifesto. I'd like a U-turn on the scrapping of jury trials, which have worked very well for 900 years. I'd like a U-turn on the dumbing down of education and the curtailing of academies, which have delivered social mobility. But as the Artemis 2 mission sends a group of people to the moon, you'd have to be a space cadet to think that Starmer will U-turn on any of those things. Sir Keir Starmer, you only talk out of Uranus. Tony is in West Sussex. Good morning, Tony.
Hi. Great show. I've been listening to you since 6 o'clock.
Oh, that's wonderful. Tony, listen, Tony, I want a U-turn on the Chagos Islands. I also want a U-turn on the tax burden, the national insurance raid, the farmers. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are that it'll be out of Keir Starmer's hands before too long, because the international money people will say enough's enough. I've seen it with George Brown years ago with the last Labour government in the 70s, whenever it was, 60s, when they came in and said, basically, you're running the country into the ground. We'll now tell you how to run the country. You will reduce benefits. You will do this. You will do that. And Starmer is going to be in that position, I think, before the year is out, because we're currently repaying at 5%. If that goes to 5.5%, 6% and above, the IMF will come in and say, listen, mate, you are cocking it all up. We'll tell you now how you run your country and what you've got to do, whether you like it or not.
Tony, I think you're right. And in many ways, I'm grateful that we are at the mercy of international Rolex-wearing bankers, because at least they know what the bottom line looks like. They understand that this is a country that does not live within its means.
No, it's not. You're absolutely right. The other thing is people look at the stock market and think, oh, that's reassuring. It's at 10,600 or something like that. That's foreign money coming into this country. That's not internal investment into the stock market. That's foreign money. And don't forget, Stargate pulled out yesterday of the $30 billion deal they trumpeted by Labour last September. Oh, we've done a $30 billion deal with Stargate. Well, Stargate pulled out yesterday because they basically said we are not investing in the UK. It is not the place to do business. So the stock market is high because people are investing thinking it's going to turn around. But the minute they realise it's not, they'll take their money out, the stock market will collapse, the IMF will come in, and I don't think Starmer's going to last the end of this year at all, and I don't think the Labour Party will.
So you actually see the international bond markets as pulling the plug on this premiership?
Without a doubt.
And how does that play out, Tony? Because I do agree with you, because we're so over-leveraged now. But
because the Labour Party will then have to do what the IMF says, which is basically cut back on welfare.
Right.
Possibly reduce taxes to start growth.
Yeah.
Maybe look at specific markets where growth, like the building trade. You had the guy from construction on earlier. He was very intelligent. Reduce the bills for construction so they can build houses and boost the economy. And they'll be told what to do. Now, Starmer could turn around and say, I'm not doing that. I'm calling a general election because he doesn't want anybody in his party to take over. But I don't think anybody in the party has got the brains to do what they're told to do by the IMF. I think they're economically illiterate. A 5-year-old has got more idea on maths than Rachel Reeves has. And so I think we could see a general election because outside money men will say the UK is a basket case.
And it is not inconceivable, is it? It's in fact, Tony, the view of Nigel Farage that we could have an early election because of an economic meltdown like that. Farage has been talking about 2027 for a long time, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. And I support reluctantly Nigel Farage because I think they're all head cases, but he's probably the less nutty head case of the lot. I think Kemi, because the Conservative, I used to be Conservative all my life, never ever vote for them again, because I don't think Kemi's bad, but it's the people above her we don't see who will say, all right, Kemi, you want to do that? Sorry, we're not going to let you. So I think the Conservatives dead duck. Ed Davey, complete waste of space. Zach Polanski, for goodness sake, you go to an asylum, you get someone better than him.
Captain Cleavage?
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, that man wants to lead our country. Are we serious?
And
so you think
we're heading towards a Greece scenario where, of course, Greece were no longer able to service their debt. It was a sovereign debt crisis in 2009. And isn't it ironic, Tony, that the cost of government borrowing for the Greeks is lower than it is for the UK at the moment?
Well, there you go. That's the risk that we are at the
gilt
moment.
yields
You know,
are
you can
more
only fill
favourable.
the container so far, and once it gets to the top and starts to overspill, the money men will come in and say, enough's enough, you can't keep doing this. Because our investments, the money men will say, our investments are in danger. That's going to be the crux.
Tony, what an authoritative call. Loved our conversation, and thank you for listening from 6. I'm deeply honoured. I'm honoured that all of you are listening and watching, and let me tell you, Talk Breakfast is growing, largely thanks to the contribution of you via your calls, your texts, your voice notes. Tony, have a great Saturday. We'll catch up soon. Can Britain survive another 3 years of Starmer in number 10? This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Lindsay in Wales is worried about an economic meltdown and says, Mark, when the IMF come in, they'll tell Starmer to rejoin the EU. That's the agenda. This is Starmer's agenda. All this other nonsense is to support this happening. Can Britain survive 3 years of Sir Keir Starmer in number 10? Well, an unnamed texter says, Mark, the question isn't if we can survive 3 years. It should be, can we survive the year, period? What about this from Russ, who says, hello, Mark. Tony's comments around Stargate. Remember the... Oh, it's just disappeared there. Oh, my goodness. Technology, folks. Speaking of Stargate, Oh, I'll get back to that text because it has literally... I'm a good improviser, but it has disappeared off my screen. But that is a concern, isn't it? A massive project, OpenAI, worth £30 billion to the economy. They've put it on hold. Why? Because of the business environment of the UK and the cost of energy. 30 billion, folks, down the drain. Let's get a voice note on 3 years of Starmer from Michael.
Hi, Mark. It's Michael from Norwich. What a great show you do. I can't believe that contributor can talk about the right and the Conservative Party in the same sentence. There's nothing right about the Conservative Party. If you look at our streets and the villages and towns that we now live, it's just like the third world, full of third world people that have taken over our country. We need someone to help us, not the Conservatives who destroyed everything, and now Starmer wants to destroy everything that's left.
Powerful words. I share your passion, Michael, and I share your deep concerns for the direction of the country, although many will be cheered by the front page of the Times newspaper. Prime Minister forced by Donald Trump to abandon Chagos plan. Let's get reaction from the political editor of The Sun on Sunday, Kate Ferguson. Good morning, Kate.
Good morning.
So the Prime Minister, once again, subject to political headwinds, out with his control.
Yes, totally. I mean, this was the big kind of drama of last year. Would they ever get this Chagos deal through? And it's a deal that I think most of the population, most Brits don't really understand. But we were told, no, we have to give the Chagos Islands over to Mauritius and buy them back, lease them back by paying them money every year, because that's what the international law courts are saying. Anyway, Donald Trump decided to oppose that deal, was very forthright in his opposition.
Yeah.
And now Keir Starmer's had to relent, really. It's not going to be in the King's Speech. There's no point putting that law through the British Parliament if America say no at the end of it. So that's it, torn up. Number 10 obviously insisting that it's just parked for now. But to all intents and purposes, it looks like that Chagos Islands surrender, as it's been called, has been parked.
And the problem is that Starmer can't own the axing of this in the way that he has owned his lack of support for America in the Iranian war, which he considers now to have been a smart move. But he can't say, actually, I thought Chagos was a bad idea in the first place. The political implications are not great for him.
No,
Prime Minister not in control or power.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, he's been told by Donald Trump that this isn't getting through, so he's had to kind of park it. But Keir Starmer still supports that deal, so it's not something he can capitalise on. It's not something that he'll get any credit for.
Now, I don't expect the Prime Minister to be love-bombing Donald Trump, because the President has said some quite nasty things about the Prime Minister. I've got viewers and listeners that may agree, but he's been very personal and quite obnoxious. So I think it's unreasonable to expect Starmer just to soak it all up. But were you surprised that Starmer was quoted as effectively saying that he's actually fed up of Donald Trump? Do you think that was intemperate language, given the delicate nature of the relationship?
Well, I think that is purposeful language. We've seen a total change in Keir Starmer's political strategising with Donald Trump. So in that first year, it was all about love-bombing him, inviting him for a state visit. King Charles is going to America at the end of the month to kind of lay on the pomp and ceremony again. But Donald Trump is not popular with the British people, and this war has not been popular, and it has pushed bills up. So Keir Starmer has made the choice to sort of go in, not all guns blazing against Donald Trump, but go in a lot harder. And that really is a lot of his local election strategy now. Try and play on some of that public annoyance, public lack of support for Trump, and hope that boosts his own poll ratings. I mean, intemperate language, you know, fed up. Look, some people may look at that and look at Keir putting Trump and Putin in the same sentence and say that's not a great idea. But I think Keir Starmer's decided to think, wow, actually a bit of Trump bashing has played quite well in other countries. You think about Canada, and he's hoping to get a bit of that himself.
And the Chagos Islands deal, it ain't coming back, is it?
The Chagos Islands can't come back. That deal can't come back unless America agrees. So as long as Donald Trump opposes it, it's not going to go through.
And he's in the White House for the next 2.5
exactly,
years.
so it's just not going to rear its head again, I don't think, for a while. Maybe, you know, maybe in a few years' time, maybe the next administration, but not now.
There's just a picture emerging, isn't there, Kate, of a Prime Minister whose arm is being twisted by the US administration on Chagos, by backbenchers on modest changes to the scale and scope of benefits, particularly disability benefits, and his arm twisted by figures in the cabinet on net zero and, you know, indefinitely to remain and a variety of other topics, tax. You know, does Starmer, does he decide anything these days?
Yeah, there is this sense that he's a man, like, not really in power, even though he's in number 10. Look, he's certainly being battered by events at the moment. He kicked off this year saying he was going to be the cost of living Prime Minister and bring your bills down. But we can see how he has absolutely no control over that. Bills are going up again because of this war in Iran. Even if this ceasefire holds, even if the Strait of Hormuz is eventually reopened properly, this inflation is going to stay high for a long time.
He didn't want to scrap the two-child benefit cap. Now he thinks it's the best idea ever. He wants to scrap jury trials. He's being thwarted by backbenchers on that one. Then there's the ID cards, which has been diluted. I mean, it's just a litany, isn't it? And it's very unfortunate. Do you know, what is the mood at number 10 at the moment?
Well, I think they're just trying to get through the next couple of months because there's this big thing on the horizon, which is the May local elections, which are going to be horrific for Labour, and that will once again thrust into the limelight all these questions about Keir Starmer's leadership and whether or not he'll actually face a challenge, maybe from Angela Rayner, maybe from Wes Streeting, maybe from someone else. But I think you're right. What we found out very quickly with the Starmer regime is that it could get battered by its own backbenchers. So Labour's got a huge majority, but he's got no authority to get anything controversial done. And we're seeing that now in the kind of inertia and the legislative proposals being dropped.
Yes, I mean, this is without historic precedent, isn't it, for a Prime Minister to have a big mandate and a big majority and to be so powerless. Didn't happen to Thatcher, didn't happen to Blair.
Yeah, I think it's actually really astonishing how quickly the Labour Party just did descend into kind of faction fighting and how he lost that kind of support and authority among his backbenchers, particularly so many of them being new MPs, so people that kind of you might think felt that they owed their allegiance to the Starmer project in some way. Obviously, a lot of that is a broader point about how politically volatile things are. So you're kind of only as popular as your polling suggests, and Keir Starmer and Labour's polling is through the floor. So a lot of anxious Labour MPs looking at their own seats. But I think it is actually astonishing. We're very used in this country to operating on a kind of majoritarian system. If you get a big majority, the point is you can actually enact your manifesto and do stuff. Well, Keir Starmer's not finding that at all.
No, even Boris was able to deploy that 80-seat majority quite well, and Starmer's is bigger than that, but cuts quite a different figure in power. Regarding May and the local elections, is it priced in that Labour will be eviscerated, and does that help Starmer to a degree?
It's priced in. It doesn't help Starmer. I mean, if you have a terrible, terrible local election night, you lose all of your kind of foot soldiers, you lose those councillors who are off knocking doors, campaigning for you locally, then a lot of Labour MPs are going to come back very shaky, very depressed. Whether or not they'll go straight in for the bloodletting, or they'll think, you know, this isn't the right time because of the war, we'll have to see. But no, that election night is going to be torrid for the Prime Minister.
Are there, other than post-May, are there any other obvious moments in this calendar year where a move may be made for the leadership?
I think in a way autumn. So you can, if nothing happens before summer, you can see MPs kind of talking, bitching and plotting over the summer months. And a big question then is, would they come back in autumn and just strike? Obviously, you've got things like party conference, which usually... But they can work both ways. Usually, sometimes people can say, no, we can't act before party conference. But sometimes that can be the moment where people start wielding the knives and the plots really erupt, because all of the parliamentary party, all those activists are all cheek by jowl. In Liverpool, it will be this year.
What about not backing the US attack on Iran? I mean, is that going to age well for Starmer? Is that a rare move that was politically smart from Starmer?
Yeah, I think that will age well. Look, there's two things with this war. Number one, did people want Britain to go in, join American offensive attacks, bomb Iran? No. In fact, people don't really want America to do it either, and now they're reaping the consequences of that. So that is popular with British people, I think, that he didn't get too involved. However, the problem with the war in Iran for Prime Minister is that it actually lays bare his own shortcomings, or our own shortcomings as a nation in terms of our defence capacity. So we weren't able to deploy even a warship to the region quickly. Cyprus are very annoyed about the our failure in kind of defending our base there. And, you know, while Keir Starmer is just jetting around the Gulf having lots of meetings, it is just meetings. You know, our shortcomings as a military power that can actually respond when our allies and our own bases are under attack has been laid bare. And finally, obviously, Donald Trump has launched many blistering attacks on NATO. But I think if the consequence of this war in Iran is that NATO is weakened and America is considering either withdrawing or really scaling down its support, then that has really far-reaching implications for us and our NATO allies. So, like, while British public will be happy we weren't too embroiled in this Iran war, for our own military protection, I think we're actually in a really shaky moment.
A great coverage of the war in Iran in today's Sun newspaper. Ceasefire on knife edge ahead of peace summit. JD Vance, Vice President, says to Iran, do not play us. So the Sun very much across this massive global story, but splashing on the front page with a more important story for those closer to home. And it's lawless Britain, isn't it? New low in shoplifting epidemic. Costa del Crime. This is an amazing story, Kate. High street coffee chain hires bouncers to guard sandwiches and lattes.
Yeah, it seems like each week we just hear another torrid story about the shoplifting epidemic. And I think any of us that has been to a coffee shop, a high street, a Greggs, now it's a Costa Coffee, will know just how brazen these shoplifters are. They go in and they just scoop up so much. It's like watching supermarket sweep.
Yeah.
But now we see that Costa Coffee has had to hire bouncers to try and tackle that shoplifting epidemic. I mean, that goes to show how much money they're losing from it, because it's not cheap to hire a bouncer to physically stand there all day.
No way.
And it reminds me of the story the other day where a Waitrose worker actually dared tackle a shoplifter and then got fired for it. I think they found a new job with Iceland. They were certainly offered a job with Iceland. But it just goes to show how out of control this epidemic's got.
Well, what is your favourite coffee option when you other outlets are available? Cafe Nero, Gales if you've got the money. You flat whites?
No, I'm still a skinny cappuccino girl.
There
We're
you
very
go.
90s.
Because your body's a temple. And are you going to have a flutter on the old Grand National today?
Yes, I've put a bet on. Who have I put it on? I think it's on Last Orders, and then we'll do a sweepstake in the office too.
Well, listen, the drinks are on you because
Wow.
Rupert Lowe has backed. What's it called? Last
Orders.
Last
Has
Orders.
he?
Yeah, that was his top tip. And Rupert is like Mystic Meg when it comes to the horses, as you know.
Well, maybe I'll get lucky.
So yeah, lump on. Can I just say it's Rupert Bell, not Rupert Lowe? Quite a significant difference between the two men. Hopefully you knew what I meant. Kate, really good luck with that. I hope that your horse romps home. Can I also say please gamble responsibly? My thanks to the political editor at The Sun on Sunday. Can't wait for tomorrow's paper, Kate Ferguson. Much more to come. Prince Harry being sued by the charity he co-founded. That's next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast, 9:34. Can Britain survive 3 more years of Sir Keir Starmer in number 10? That is our conversation. We'll get back to your calls and voice notes on that in just a moment. So many stories to go at this morning, folks. You are listening to Talk Breakfast, and breaking news, front page of the Daily Mirror. Royal bombshell, Harry sued. Prince faces defamation battle with his former African charity. For reaction, I'm delighted to welcome someone that knows Harry intimately well, his former biographer, Angela Levin. Good morning, Angela.
Good morning.
We didn't see this coming, did we? This is a guy that's being sued for libel by the charity that he set up in memory of his late mother, Diana.
Yes, I have to say straight away, which you probably don't want to hear, it's that a mountain out of a molehill. We don't know what it is all about. That has not said exactly what's wrong. It seems very odd that you're attacking someone because you think they've been rude to you. In this sort of era that we live in, we're not like that. I mean, anybody who's sort of working in their job and someone then gives them a real telling off, actually you are not going to take them to court unless it's really shocking. They had an examination partly soon afterwards, and they said there was no wrongdoing there. But she is this doctor who's taken, not doctor.
Yeah, she is
lawyer.
actually. Yeah, doctor. Yeah, but her name is Dr. Sophie Chandauka. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, she has got very, very angry about his behaviour, which is something entirely different. I think that's quite right. What is very upsetting for anyone is that a lot of money is going to be spent on this in the courts rather than giving to the charity.
Most definitely. Why do you think Sentebale have taken this legal action, Angela?
Well, I think she was furious how they treated her. Harry is very rude nowadays. He was very rude to her, and she wasn't going to stand for it. And so he was making her life not very pleasant. But, you know, we've all had that, haven't we? To take it to court is very strange. There's nothing there that's proper, if you see what I mean. And one of the things, I'm not saying I'm against her, but one of the things Dr. Chandauka did, it was 400,000 with the charity in 2024, and then almost another million after that for what she'd actually spent. So she's had loads and loads of people coming around giving advice. But it's actually that Harry and his colleague and his partner who set it up are very angry that she's wasting money. And that was one of the key things. But Harry wasn't nice to her. When Meghan met her, she was not nice to her either. But there's a slightly different from actually going to court on it.
I appreciate your nuanced response to this story, Angela. There were stories going back several years that Meghan sought to upstage Dr. Sophie Chandauka. Is there any credibility to those allegations?
Well, what the thing was that there was a polo game to try and get money for the charity, and we didn't know that Dr. Chandauka was actually there, but Meghan did, and Meghan didn't want her in the right place, which is Meghan's middle of everything. She wants to be there.
Oh, this was on the podium for the photo call that allegedly poor old Sophie Chandauka was shifted to one side. It's like, get out of the way, Meghan's got to be in the middle.
Exactly. And she had to bend down because they had the big award there, which Meghan wanted to hold. Now, that is all disgusting, but I don't know whether you should use money that is going for children who have had AIDS and are very unwell. And I'm not sure that that should be given to them rather than actually what's going through to get annoyed with Harry.
Angela, whatever way you look at it, it's more bad headlines for the Duke of Sussex, isn't it? This is a guy that's currently suing the owners of the Daily Mail. If he were to lose both court cases, it would be a disaster.
Yes, he probably will, actually, but I don't know. Certainly not the second one. But I don't feel sorry for him about it. I feel sorry for the charity. And I think that that's the thing I'm concerned about. But he's Mr. We don't like you anymore. He's too big for his boots, which he now no longer uses. He's actually going to Australia and he's going to try and do this phony trip again, which we all get very, very angry about because they don't deserve it. And there's all sorts of funny now about who's paying the money. They have said that in Australia they weren't going to pay anything for them for travel. Now they are.
Yeah.
And this was the other way around, that they said they were and now they're not. You know, I think it's all a terrible mess. And I think it's a shocking thing. Harry should have behaved much better, but he's frightened. He has to do what Meghan tells him. And he should not be trampling over the royal family all the time.
What do you think that Charles and William will make of this headline in the newspaper today? Royal bombshell, Harry sued. Even if he is successful in defending himself against the allegation of libel, it's still not great for Charles and William to be seeing this about the prodigal prince.
No, well, the more and more he behaves badly, the more they want to get rid of him, and he's not have anything to do with the royal. And I get freezing cold if I think that the king is going to take him back. I think it would be a complete disaster. William will, of course, want him out, but we can't have this. I mean, he's ruining the royal family. He's ruining the behaviour of the royal family, and he doesn't seem to care. And he can allow these things to happen where he's going to be taken to court, and he will, it just goes on and on and on, that this is the man who's just going to court and telling people off, and then they tell him off, and it's not good behaviour. And that's partly because he doesn't know what to do, partly because he wants to please his wife, because she wants him to show more power, which is nonsense. And I can't say what I feel really most of all is that they must not have anything to do with the royal family anymore.
I mean, at the moment, Harry mired in these expensive court cases, Angela. Then you've got, as you mentioned, the fake royal trip to Australia, which many Australians are resisting. They don't want the Duke and Duchess of double standards turning up on their shores. Harry is having trouble, apparently, selling tickets to his mental health speech. They've slashed the prices for that. Meghan's trying to charge people $2,000 for the great privilege of having lunch in her company. It doesn't bode well for the rest of the year, does it?
No, it doesn't. It's absolutely terrible. And I don't know why that the royal family here don't try and say to the people that he's going to fine, please don't do it. This is affecting our palace and everything that's going on for us. Please don't do it. They won't, of course. They stay quiet and back. But I think sometimes they ought to start saying things about this, or actually letting the public know, because, it's very wrong behaviour, completely and utterly wrong behaviour. And it seems that he doesn't know what else to do. Nobody knows what to do with him, and they're a bit scared of Meghan because she's so determined. She will go on and on and on and on to have a hugely expensive hotel, and the way she pushes people around. I saw it taking a mic from somebody who was a woman who was talking, and she was pulling it, and this very nice woman was talking about it, and she got really angry because she wasn't talking just herself. I mean, they are worse and worse.
Angela, you're the voice of reason within this royal madness. We love having you on the show, and I look forward to catching up soon. Have an excellent Saturday. My deep thanks to renowned royal biographer and broadcaster Angela Levin. So much more to come. This is Talk Breakfast.
Welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
Rachel Reeves, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McCown.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle's from Suits, that's about it.
I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going. I have 0% beard, and I feel
raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of this desperation.
Is public transport good value for money?
No, it isn't.
You really don't like speaking to people.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. It is 9:46, live in the studio for another retro rewind in which we look back at a wonderful year. We go down memory lane in the company of Virgin Radio star Steve Denyer. Hello, Steve.
So good to be with you. How you doing?
I'm very, very well. How are things over at Virgin? Keeping busy?
Super excited. We've done 2 weeks in for Chris on the Breakfast Show. Chris Evans returns on Monday. So does TFI Unplugged. So you'll be able to see the action. You know, when he has a guest, and you can see the action as it happens, as well as listen to it. It's like a radio show, TV show. Sam Ryder's the first guest in on Monday. He's amazing.
Great talent.
We've got Gemma Arterton in. We've got Jack Severetti singing live. So some great moments.
Gemma Arterton, not an ugly person.
Possibly the person I would quite like to go for a night out with. I think she'd be fun,
She's also the risk of dragging you into anything political or culturally controversial. She's not super woke. She's not politically correct. She's quite earthy.
She says it how it is. I just like honest people.
A bit like Miriam Margolyes, one of these actresses with a personality.
Amazing. She needs to be in the Traitors, the Celebrity Traitors. Can you imagine it?
It would be explosive.
Very, very good. Listen, I was going to take you back. You know, every week we pick a different year.
Yeah.
This is the year I think that the chaos started. Lots of people cite 2016 as the year when there were no rules.
The world went mad.
Everything happened. I mean, we've got to start, haven't we, with Brexit. The 23rd of June, the referendum. We woke up to the news, of course. Will you explain the referendum and the Brexit?
Well, the biggest public vote in the history of our country. We've had elections, but it was the biggest single plebiscite in our history. And it was a slightly narrow majority in favour of leaving, and the political and media establishment did not expect it, which is why when broadcasters went on air, they were shell-shocked.
Yeah, because they predicted it the other way, didn't they, the evening before? Of course, we woke up the following morning. It was the first big, I suppose, shock of the year. More shocks to come, but we woke up to David Cameron resigning. Let's have a little look at this in the morning.
The British people have voted to leave the European Union, and their will must be respected. Although leaving Europe was not the path I recommended, I am the first to praise our incredible strengths. I've said before that Britain can survive outside the European Union, and indeed that we could find a way. Now the decision has been made to leave, we need to find the best way. And I will do everything I can to help. I love this country, and I feel honoured to have served it. And I will do everything I can in future to help this great country succeed.
You can hear the wobble in the voice, can't you?
The emotion there right at the end. So he resigns, Theresa May becomes our Prime Minister. The markets, the British pound fell sharply. Global markets reacted immediately. And it was a sense of, OK, wow, this is a new world. This year gave us the beginnings of that and the craziness of that. The other massive event was Donald Trump winning.
Who's he? Who's that? Well, hold fire. Can you just talk among yourselves while I Google who is Donald Trump? That's someone that doesn't have much profile, I don't think.
Do you remember when Trump started running for the Republican Party? It was a bit of a joke right at the beginning,
100%.
wasn't it? I always remember the footage of him coming down the escalators in Trump Tower, and people thought, well, it's just a gimmick, it's just publicity stunt. And of course,
exactly, in order to boost his TV ratings.
Yeah.
And then some people think Trump had no intention of winning or becoming president.
No, exactly. But somehow he did. I always remember the quote from Tom Hanks, because all the celebrities were speaking out, and Tom Hanks said something like, he said, we're more likely to have Martians invade us and spaceships land than that man becoming our president. Of course, like during the campaign, it gave us some of the greatest debates. The Trump Clinton. Remember, Clinton was so experienced, so people thought that she would definitely become, but there was so many twists and turns. Let's have a quick look at one of those debates and some of the great moments from it, because it was quite comedy.
When it comes to the wall that Donald talks about building, he went to Mexico. He had a meeting with the Mexican president, didn't even raise it. He choked, and then got into a Twitter war because the Mexican president said, we're not paying for that wall. You are very clearly quoting from WikiLeaks. And what's really important about WikiLeaks is that the Russian government has engaged in espionage against Americans.
That was a great pivot off the fact that she wants open borders, okay? How did we get up to Putin? 1,800 nuclear warheads, and she's playing chicken. Look, Putin, from everything I see, has no respect for this person.
Well, that's because he'd rather have a puppet as president of the United States.
No puppet.
And it's pretty clear.
You're the puppet.
It's pretty.
You're the puppet. He also referred to her as Crooked Hillary.
Crooked Hillary.
Which sounds like a character from Scooby-Doo.
It does, doesn't it?
The crooked caretaker.
Yeah. She, she was having health problems during that campaign. Do you remember?
She was.
She famously kind of fainted at the 9/11.
That's right. The eyes went all a bit funny, didn't they?
And they captured it, didn't they? And they said, you know what? Is she lying? Is she in a good state? She had a terrible cough during the whole thing. He had massive controversy. Do you remember when that video leaks of him on the bus with, was it Bobby Bush, saying those things about grabbing women and what have you?
Yeah.
And people thought, I remember that evening when that news broke, people thought, well, that's it for him. But the American public thought differently. It's amazing to see that footage, actually. If you were watching it, they look so young. I mean, he looks so young, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
Mark I at the presidency, and it was a completely different presidency to Mark II.
Well, it's been a decade, and although he's obviously still has quite remarkable energy for a man of his age, but yes, he's definitely has aged, put on a bit of weight maybe, and it's famously an office that does age you. We saw Obama go quite grey after 8 years in the White House, because it's 24/7, isn't it?
It is.
Biggest job in the world.
Of course, and he's back around again. But this was very much a year, next to Brexit, that was the other massive shock, wasn't it? People weren't expecting waking up that morning to the news that Trump had got in.
No, and you're so right about how somehow Brexit set in motion this huge sort of seismic set of waves passing through public life. So if you go through the list, we had Brexit, then we had Trump, then we had Boris's surprise landslide in 2019.
Yes.
Then we had COVID.
Yeah.
Then we had the
Ukraine
Russian invasion of Ukraine. Then we had the war in Gaza.
Yeah.
and now we've got Iran. It literally, can we just have like 6 months of
Honestly,
no news?
and all those events you've just cited happened back to back to back. You know, for example, the COVID laws were relaxed, and literally 2 days later, the Ukraine war started.
So, Vladimir, please, can we just have a few weeks? We want to go to the pub, want to go to a beer garden, have a couple of Amstels, and just gather our breath.
Exactly that. The other massive thing that happened in this year, we had so many celebrity deaths. It was one of those years where, I don't know if you remember, every single day there was a massive household name, pop star passing. It all started in January of this year with this breaking news from CNN, David Bowie.
We're getting this breaking news in. We've seen this on social media. Legendary British singer David Bowie has died after a battle with cancer. He was 69 years old.
That's right. Bowie was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame back in 1996, received the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 2006, and we've just seen, Rosemary mentioned social media, his son took to the website to say, quote, "Very sorry and sad to say it's true. I'll be offline for a while. Love to all." That message coming from David Bowie's son as the world now reacts to news of this legendary singer and performer passing.
Yeah, I mean, the word icon is bandied around a lot, but this guy, Bowie, was a one-off, wasn't he?
Yeah, we lost a huge one. And it's, you know, so surprising. It sent shockwaves. He released a new album on the Friday. Nobody had any idea, apart from close family, friends, you know, that he was ill. And then he released the album on the Friday on his birthday. He died on the Monday, and it was announced on that Monday morning, and that set the ball rolling for so many deaths. I mean, if I may, I'll tell you a few of them. Alan Rickman died in that year. Carrie Fisher died. Do you remember, right at the end of the year? And then
Princess
the following day,
Princess Leia from Star Wars. You know.
Her mother passed away. And you had, you know, Victoria Wood was another.
Debbie Reynolds.
That's right, Debbie Reynolds. So, you know, a day after Carrie Fisher, there was 1 week, I think it was in June of this year, that Victoria Wood passed. We were all so shocked about that. And then the following day, Prince died.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Minneapolis. There were so many greats. It was just one of those years. And, of course, it all ended, do you remember, on Christmas Day with George Michael passing away? The news that George Michael passed away on Christmas evening. And, of course, last Christmas, he never got to #1 with that song until he passed away, and everyone went out and bought the record, and he went down in history as one of our greatest. But Victoria Wood, Ronnie Corbett, Muhammad Ali, Paul Daniels, Terry Wogan passed away, Carolina Hearn. The list is
George Michael. I mean, it was just all of our favourite people. Quite shocking. And, you know, Bowie, what's amazing about that last album, there were songs on that album that referenced his death.
Yes, you would never have known
So
those.
he wrote those songs from the grave, in a sense.
Exactly.
And it was all crafted by him, an iconoclast to the end.
It was like a goodbye note, but we never realised, actually, when we listened to the album over the weekend. I listened to it over the weekend, and then, of course, on the Monday, they took on a whole different meaning. It was a bit like the Freddie Mercury way of kind of saying goodbye in that video, "These are the days of our lives." But we lost loads of greats. Pokemon Go.
I beg your pardon. Family show. We've all had a drink.
Were you a fan?
What are you doing this weekend? I'm very happy for you. Someone's got a full social life. What was that about Pokemon?
Pokemon Go was the thing that...
Who are you poking? What is this?
Do you remember the augmented reality thing? And people went
crazy.
Can you explain,
Alex can you explain poking to me? I don't understand. Pokemon Go. Do you know about this?
It was when people found monsters on their phone in the street or something.
Oh,
like they did walk around, didn't
it was
they?
like an augmented reality thing.
When the police worried about it.
Mass groups kind of like rocked up to places to try and, you know, be the first person.
And did you
get the Pokemon Go.
Did you poke anything in 2016 or not?
Not on this game, no.
Okay.
No, but thank you for asking and checking in on me.
Each to their own, isn't it?
It was quite the year.
Anything else before you go?
I think that's about it.
Well,
I think that's it.
Plenty.
2016, year that changed everything. And people cite Bowie going and Brexit and Trump and everything as
Brexit.
the start of everything else.
Oh,
you remember Brexit?
I remember the dreams. They never came true.
You got your way. We're out. And frankly, thank God for that. You don't have buyer's remorse about Brexit, do you?
No, I just wish we actually got given it. I mean, instead, we're just even closer to the EU than ever before.
Oh, listen, what do you think about Chagos? It's going to dominate the next 3 hours. You must be so happy.
I had no words. I just had, like, hand actions. No, it's really good.
It's like working with Flipper.